Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Tonight we've got our usual panel. We've got Sam from Life Afterlife ITC Research, mouthful channel. We have got Julie from Unearthly Wanderings, and we have got Deb from Deb currently because she still hasn't done a channel.
I'm getting there.
Yep. Right, tonight we're going to be talking about recent events surrounding the military and UFO or unidentified flying objects hovering around. What's the name of the ship again, Julie? I forgot it.
Omaha.
That's
Omaha.
it.
Yeah, I
Thank
keep
you.
forgetting the name of it. It's going to be round the Omaha. Apparently, it occurred in 2019. Evening Seago. At one point, they claim that there was 14 separate objects hovering around the ship. Some of them were showing up on radar, some of them were not, which is quite interesting. So they're now thinking that whatever they were have got some kind of cloaking technology. The US military at this point haven't actually admitted whether they're aliens or not, and I don't think they will. All they are basically saying is that currently they are a genuine phenomenon that's been recorded, but they don't know what they are. So they're whether they're worrying it's the Russians or anything else, I do not know. Somebody's put Omaha in the chat. Thank you. I've just noticed it. But I thought we'd talk about UFOs and the military tonight and certain things about what's happening. So, Sam, you've been watching it the last few days. What's your opinion on it from what you've seen?
I mean, like the public, at this point are begging for answers and that. And I reckon, the Pentagon will release this report. But if there's anything that will put a threat on national security in the United States and sensitive information that the enemy could use, they're going to hold some of the things back. So I reckon there'll be a public report, and there will also be evidence, or that possibly will be kept private. I don't think everything will be spilled out on this report. I don't think.
Yeah. Now this happened in 2019, but they've also released images of other things that have happened over the last couple of years. What do you think they are, Sam? In your personal opinion, do you think they're from here, or do you think they're from somewhere else?
There's could be a couple of possibilities, but if you're thinking with a logical head, these crafts can do a right angle at extremely high speeds, and travel at speeds that no human or living organism on Earth would survive. So these may be controlled in some way. Is there a basis under the sea? That's one of these possibilities, because there's more explored on the surface of the moon than there actually is in the deepest parts of the oceans, which haven't been discovered. And these crafts seem to travel underwater as well. There's nothing that seems to be an object for these crafts.
Yeah, well, what you're saying that is really odd, because I was watching a video yesterday on YouTube, quite a recent one, which was talking about continental drift and stuff, and how they prove continental drift. And I didn't realise, I thought about 5% of the oceans was mapped, but apparently, according to this guy, it's less than 1%.
Less than 2%.
So 99% of the oceans out there, we've got no idea what's under there whatsoever. Right, Julie, what's your initial opinions
on the report that's just come out?
On what's happened, Jeff?
Yeah, I believe in UFOs. I always have. I believe that they are, in my opinion, UFOs. I said, and I will stick by this, I'm just wondering why now, why they're releasing information now, because they've obviously been aware of this for many, many years. These reports go way back in time, and I'm wondering why now they're feeding little bits of information to the public.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my big question: is why?
Do you think they're desensitizing us to the fact that we're not alone? Do you think
Absolutely.
they're preparing us for something?
That's what I said too. I think that there's something more to this, whether they're going to slowly wean us into the idea, particularly for those who don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're only going to feed us enough information to whet our appetites. We're not going to know everything, but
Yeah.
I believe that there must be a reason why, whether it be that they're going to expose something bigger, or whether we're going to perhaps see more of these craft or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, was somebody's fire alarm going off then?
Not mine.
Not mine.
Was there someone beeping at yours, Sam?
Oh, it was possibly a REM pod, but somebody
right.
somebody banged the door downstairs. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right. I thought your fire alarm was going off.
Yeah.
Right, before I ask Deb her opinion, I'll just read out a few things in the chat already. Kelstorm says, "Hi guys, I totally agree with what Sam said with Sammy." Seago says, "I honestly think they know very little. I don't think for 1 second that we have full disclosure of the current state of technological development. We'll talk about this in a minute. That being said, these craft are beyond all of us, in my opinion."
Yes.
Yeah. Then Kel said they had no choice, as too many military have seen it and civilians. It's not an ideal position for them to be in either. They can either admit they don't know or try to dismiss it, but we don't have a bloody clue isn't in the government's vocabulary. That's very true. That is Seago. Right, Deb, what's your opinion on it?
Okay, I, for one, agree with the bulk of the panel that I believe that UFOs are real.
Mm-hmm.
There's no constraint to their activities on this planet whatsoever. And if you go in a linear timeline, you've only got to go back, what, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, when that Israeli retired director of special operations gave an interview to Al Jazeera and confirmed that there's been contact for quite some time, that the US, Israel and Russia have a long-term agreement with what he referred to as the Galactic Federation.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly now, since that a few months ago, there's been slow releases and confirmations, the Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
For example, in current news, you've got the Omaha, which was only, I think, a week and a half, 2019?
2019.
A year ago or two? Yeah, 2019. There was another one in between, and for the life of me at the moment, I can't think of it. But I believe that we are being primed for something bigger to occur. And with technology now, with mobile phones and videoing and so forth, there's just too much evidence. There was only, I think, a month ago, or maybe towards a little bit later, but anyway, timeline, where 3 triangle-shaped craft flew over Kiev.
Yeah.
And they were slow. They weren't rushed. There was nothing. And too many people got hold of amateur video with their phones for Russia or anybody else to deny it.
Yeah. Pat says I'm totally on the fence about UFOs. If I saw one, I think I'd freak out.
The thing is, when we say we believe in UFOs, what exactly does that mean? Because UFO is an unidentified flying object, or are we talking about spaceships?
See, this is the thing.
That's a very, very good point.
There is actually no distinction between UFO being alien and being terrestrial. The only thing it classifies is whatever it was unidentified and in the air. So, you know, people immediately jump to the conclusion UFO means alien, but it doesn't. It basically means it's just something that's airborne that cannot be identified by any conventional means. So that is the general term of UFO. What is interesting about the ones off the ship is they stated there was no visible form of propulsion with them, and there was no visible exhaust system either. So
Same with the one with the Tic Tac.
they cannot in any way determine how these things were actually powered or keeping themselves in the air. There was no rotors, nothing to be drowned. Now, going back to what Seago said earlier, which is interesting, and I think what he said is 100% bang on. We don't know what our current state of technology is, you know, because things like night vision and stuff like that was around in the 40s, but it was kept under wraps for years. There are rumors that technology itself goes back to Roswell, from technology that was, what's the word?
Reclaimed?
Yeah. Was it
Reengineered?
Apparently it was technology that was reclaimed from the crash site and was then reverse engineered for us to get our modern day night vision. Now it was kept a secret in the military for years that they got this technology. So we don't know what our current technology level is, because if we go on past history, the government has always had technologies years before they are revealed to the civilian population. The stealth bomber being another perfect example. You know, the amount of people around the Area 51 who reported that stealth bomber as a UFO is unbelievable, because that's where it was tested. It was tested around the Dreamland area in Area 51, where they are apparently storing, so the claims go, or were storing 11 different alien craft, according to Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
You know,
He's the guy.
Yeah, we don't know if this technology is. It could very well be our technology, or it could be Earthbound technology. It could be alien technology, but one way or the other, it is definitely technology that civilians are currently not aware of.
Yeah,
Most
I mean,
definitely.
like our modern technology tried to advance night vision technology, and microchips are not up to the task.
Yeah,
like the original tubes. I know there is some sort of growing. There's some sort of living organism that's involved in growing what's in these tubes. I can't exactly remember, but I remember going into this, and the tubes are involved in the night vision scopes and that. What I have here is digital technology, and it is actually not. It doesn't touch these original these original night visions that the military have been using.
Yeah, Kelstorm says definitely. My granddad, rest his soul, was always telling me about it from his RAF years. I'm presuming this is about UFOs. Mother would say, "Stop filling her head with rubbish." Dad, I wish he was alive to see this. Shire Ghost says, "Why do alien UFOs get spotted around military sites that are active or decommissioned?" Seago says, "Recovered and back engineered down craft." I totally buy that. Government, private industry has been funding secretive projects like that for a long time. Well, we do know now that although they call it Area 51, Area 51 wasn't actually the area as such where most of it was going on. It was a site a little bit further east, very close to Area 51, that they call Dreamland, where they were keeping all the stuff. But there are civilians and ex-military personnel who have come forward now and broken their Official Secrets Act agreements to admit that they claim there were 11 separate aircraft housed in hangars at Dreamland, and they were being reversed engineered for things like anti-grav drives. Now, Bob Lazar, who is one of the most famous or if not the most famous of these people who came forward, had attempts on his life and stuff like that when he tried to reveal this stuff. He was actually shot at in his car and all sorts. So you do have to ask yourself, why were the government going out of their way to silence somebody who they claimed was telling lies about technology they did not own? So you've got to look into that angle of it. You've also got to take into consideration the worldwide considerations, because there's always been this divide between communism and democracy. So you've got mainly the Western countries democratic, like the US, us, Western Europe. Then you've got like Australia's probably the only, big country on the eastern side of the globe but they've got close ties with the UK anyway. That did it.
We've got bases in Pine Gap, which is critical to their Five Eyes satellites.
Yeah, so this technology has always been an arms race between democracy and communist countries. So there is a big advantage if certain countries have got this technology not to admit they've got it, because the second they admit they've got it, other countries are going to send in people to try and get their hands on it, or they're going to blackmail, people in those countries to get the information for them. So you've got to consider the security side of it as well.
That's another thing I wondered is we all know about, as you said, Dreamland, as it's called, which is in the US. Do you think that there are other bases around the world that may have similar alien craft or ETs or something like the US?
I know the British are supposed to have some. The French are supposed to be in possession of some. Australia is supposed to be in possession of some. Germany is, and a few other countries, China, Russia, they're all supposed to have their own versions of craft. Now, the other story that's going around is that these aliens have actually been it's not only reclaimed craft, that have salvaged, that's the word I was looking for. It's not only salvaged craft that we've got, but that these aliens have actually contacted governments around the world, and they are actively working in partnership, and that these governments have actually provided basis for them, because there are people out there, and I believe Bob Lazar is one of them, who have actually claimed to have met extraterrestrial beings who are based inside these military complexes as part of the staff. It's a two-way thing, but they've also claimed that the agreements that that Earth's governments have got with these aliens is a little bit one-sided. It's more benefit. Although we're getting certain technology, what they're getting back off us far outweighs it from what they've hinted at. It's definitely not a 50-50 partnership.
Yeah, I think what we're looking at here is, and it's a fly in the ointment of conventional science. We're talking about anti-gravity, anti-resistance, no sonic booms. We're possibly thinking of interdimensional technology that us, as with the technology we have, we don't even understand that yet. And a lot of scientists are still baffled because of the fact that gravity has been breached and there's no resistance to water, air. There's no resistance at all.
Seago says, I find Bob Lazar fascinating. I do think a lot of this new info is validating to him too. The good thing about Bob Lazar is he has actually taken polygraphs, which has proved that he himself believes he's telling the truth, because what you've got to bear in mind with a polygraph is they don't actually signify that someone is telling the truth. All they signify is that someone believes they're telling the truth. So if you convince yourself that the sky is green enough and you genuinely believe the sky is green, you would pass a lie detector test if they asked you if the sky was green and you said yes. So that's what you've got to be careful with polygraphs. But the other thing that's really interesting about Bob Lazar is the US government went out of their way to deny that he was ever working for them, down to the point they deleted his school records and everything. They literally tried to wipe his identity off the face of the planet. But thanks to an investigative journalist who was working with him at the time, they made one simple cock up and they forgot to take his name out of the base
The
phone
phone book.
directory. And
Yep.
that was how they proved that Bob Lazar actually worked at Area 51 or Dreamland, because his name and his extension number was in the base phone book. And of all the things they did, they literally deleted his social security, his tax records, his qualifications, because they tried to discredit him that way. They literally deleted all his educational qualifications off the face of the planet. Bob Lazar, in effect, did not exist. He wasn't a person. And the only way they buggered up was they forgot to take his name out the phone book. And it was something as simple as that basically validated him. Let's just read a few more of these. There have been recent sightings of UFOs. Stephen, they never stop. They never stop. UFO sightings go on all year round. Kel says go on, Sam.
Do you know, if all of a sudden we found out exactly what was going on and how it's done, how this travel happens.
Yeah.
Like, when you see radars, you'll see the craft suddenly appear in the middle of the radar, not from the side, shoot across, and then disappear, and, there's no exit point. It seems to come in and go out, and that. If we could all of a sudden harness that technology, the biggest money makers, which is the oil and who are now letting out the electric energy, the energy companies would suffer greatly,
Yeah.
So, the government is kind of possibly under pressure there, the world governments, of not letting out too much information in this kind of technology. So we are still, when you think about, we've gone from petrol and we're slowly moving to electric, but when you think about it, we have to put a lot of energy into our vehicles for them to actually move. They're still not very economical vehicles.
Yeah.
And this technology would change everything, but it would change the world as we know it economically as well. So that's possibly one of the reasons why some of this stuff will be suppressed.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Because anti-gravity's been around since the 40s with the Germans.
Oh yeah, Italy was creating an anti-grav engine. Stephen,
well, they
read that one. Yeah. Kel says they're in DNA, and it's nothing like anything on Earth in our evolutionary scale. I'm quite sure what that's referring to. Sego says Bob's spoken before about Russians being on S4, but that one of the groups working on the crafts discovered something big, and the Russians were never allowed back on the base again. That is 100% true. What Sego has put there is 100% true. Hang on, Sam. Let me just read through these.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right, because they'll scroll off otherwise, and I'll forget them. Kel says, plus maybe it goes back to DNA found in humans that wasn't fit into our evolutionary history. Okay. Jack says Bob Lazar's story is fascinating. Maybe someone did that on purpose. No, it was an oversight, Jack. They literally tried to delete the guy from history. They tried to make out he didn't exist, and they cocked it up. And Seago says 100% agree, Sam. Right, Sam, sorry, what was you going to say?
Oh, it was about the DNA and stuff like that. There was talk about, we're talking about advancements in technology, and we're often talking about electronic advancement in technology. And people have been talking about this, these unidentified flying objects. Maybe they're not even electric technology.
No, they're not.
There might be a completely different technology that we don't use,
Yeah.
Well, leading on from that, Sam, that is perfect way to lead on. Bob Lazar apparently was employed at Dreamland working on reverse engineering an antigrav engine from one of these ships. And the reason they couldn't reverse engineer it was because they couldn't understand the power source. And that was basically what stopped them. It was powered by something they hadn't got a clue how it worked. And apparently it could do it was just a box, and it would do all sorts of weird and wonderful things if they stuck objects near it. It was like it was emitting an energy, but it was no energy that they could identify. And it was this that was powering the anti-grav engine. Now, in relation to UFOs and people saying they vanish and stuff as well, Bob Lazar went on to actually explain that, because he claims he actually witnessed a test flight of one of these ships that they recovered that was pretty much intact and working. And it took off at Dreamland and hovered in the air about 40 feet, something like that. And he said because of the gravitation that these engines generate, the anti-grav, they actually bend light, so the ship disappears. It looks like it's gone invisible, because the anti-grav engines are so powerful, the gravity bends the light round the ship, and it acts like a mirror and makes it invisible. I presume it also works with radar. It probably bends radio signals at the same time.
And that recent splashdown in the ocean that they captured, the craft was descending from out of the cloud cover. It got to, I think it was like 20 feet above water. It zigzagged left and right and then dived, and that's when they lost it on radar.
Yeah,
just went straight below. There was no emission, there was nothing. And once it was in the water, it was radar invisible.
Yeah. Seago says element 115. Oh,
that's the one.
He's quite knowledgeable on this, Seago. This is an interesting one. I'll read out what Seago's put, and this again is also 100% correct. Element 115, which is now on our periodic table, which it is, wasn't there in the 80s. It was, but Bob Lazar actually spoke about it before it was officially identified and put onto the periodic table. That's another thing that actually justifies his claims. And element 115 is what he claims is one form of the energy that powers these anti-grav engines, these ships that they've apparently got on US soil. What is interesting to note, when the big Area 51 thing blew up and people were scouring Area 51, not realizing that they needed to go a little bit further east to Dreamland. It was still in the Area 51 area, but it wasn't the actual site they thought it was. I've lost track of what I was going to say.
Also, don't forget Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah.
Fuel source? Was it to do with the fuel source?
I've just totally lost track of what I was going to say then. I've had a blonde moment, even though I ain't blonde. It was something to do with the actual with Dreamland itself and what we were talking about. Go on, carry on anyway, because I've lost track of that thread.
Okay.
It was something to do with element 15 that triggered it in my head, and then I've just totally forgot as I was talking about it.
You were talking about how people always go to Area 51, but they needed to go further east.
East to
Dreamland. The explosion.
Yeah.
Dreamland, and I can't remember what I was going to cover with it. It was something to do with Dreamland and the testing. Never mind, anyway. But yeah, what's it'll come to me in a minute, and I'll say it again.
Oh, the fact that it can go off radar and undetected because it bends light.
Yeah, but Bob has also claimed that there is another form of element 115 which they haven't admitted, and apparently even a few molecules of this element, the same with element 115, could power a city for. I think they said that it could power. Was it Vegas? I think they said for 6 months.
Wow!
Just one molecule of it. This is how powerful. This is how powerful this energy source is.
So, is that energy source available here, or is it extraterrestrial?
We've got one form of it now, which is element 115.
Yeah,
but apparently there's also an element 116 which the government have not admitted to at the moment. But apparently it's some kind of derivative of element 115.
Okay,
and even more powerful. But that element
Yes.
that he said, it was something like one molecule could power, and I can't remember whether it was Las Vegas or Los Angeles. It was one or the other, but he said it could power it for 6 months
Vegas.
Wow.
off one molecule.
That's why there's so much interest in interstellar mining of meteors and dead planets, dead moons. They're struggling to find this 116.
Oh, that was
because
that
they
was
know
what I
it'll
was.
be.
I've remembered what I was. Let me say it before I forget it again. People were searching out when the Area 51 took off, and people were looking on Area 51. What they didn't realise was that the government actually moved them. They moved all 11 craft. They moved them to the base in Texas, and I can't remember what it's called now. Fort
Worth.
That's where they were all taken. And oddly enough, that is where the Roswell ship was taken as well, originally. It was transported from the base in Roswell to Fort Worth the following day after it was recovered. But that's what I was meaning to say, Deb, was the fact that they'd moved all 11 craft to Fort Worth in Texas.
And apparently that's, pardon me, and that is a routine thing. They shift it around so that nobody at any one time will know exactly where all the pieces are.
Yeah. But they were forced to move them early because there was so much interest in Area 51 that they had no choice but to move them. They had to, and apparently they were all moved on great big trucks and airlifted and all sorts in secrecy, in the middle of the night and stuff, and sent on trains and all sorts. They were sent in various.
But we're focusing on the American tale. Let's not forget the British involvement to expand it further, because Americans aren't the only people on the planet, and they're not the only ones with advanced technology. They get their advanced technology developments out of Area 51 and S4, and they give it to companies like Raytheon and Boeing, and they see what they can do with it.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the technical engineering...
Apparently, the big Boeing place in America has got what they call the black hangar.
Correct.
And that is where a lot of the stuff has been taken, and Boeing has been using this technology, not successfully apparently, because it's so far advanced. Even the big aeronautical engineers at Boeing have got absolutely no idea how 99.9% of this stuff works. They're totally stumped on it. But I know Bob Lazar admitted that they failed to reverse engineer the anti-grav engine from the ship he was working on, because they simply could not understand the power source. And he said there was nothing on this plate. It was made up of elements that are not available on Earth.
Correct.
And they couldn't work out how or what it was doing. But it would actually physically affect objects that were put close to it. It was absolutely... Go on, Sam.
If it affects objects that are close to it, and people are saying that there's no way that these are manned craft because the G-forces, but then again, it's anti-gravity, and it's it's not affected by.
Well, this is exactly Bob Lazar carried on to explain this. Apparently, anything inside the bubble is protected from like him saying, he's totally protected from the gravitational forces. The bubble because I believe it's like almost like a figure eight. When an anti-grav field is generated, it's almost like a figure eight with the ship sitting where the two parts of the eight join, the two circles of the eight. And apparently at that point, the ship is fully encased in the anti-gravity field. So gravity has no force on it, which allows things to do 90-degree turns without having severe G-force on the body. And this is how he says it works. It is such a... He described it as almost the perfect engineering, because it solves so many problems just by what it is. It solves the problem of traveling at high speeds. It solves the problem of having to camouflage, because it does it naturally as part of what's going on. It's absolutely amazing the way he's described it.
Boeing and Raytheon have tried to, even in the 60s and 70s, they were trying to re-engineer this in a way that would be something that Earth materials, so we're thinking steel, iron ore, and this is going to lead back to a point that a very, very potent point that Sam alluded to a little while ago. It bends metal. They've tried it with Earth materials, material engineers, and they can't make it work with anything to our knowledge, even now. So go back then to now, they have no way of finding a material that can do what this craft does in a fluid sense, fluid mechanics.
Well,
but if you think of the impact of how that would impact even the airline business or ships, you can start to see the unfolding of the economic impact on this planet and why it's protected the way it is.
And another thing, going back to the technology point, we have only started developing memory metals in the last 10 years.
Correct.
If you go back to the original crash site of Roswell, all the locals in the area, the one thing that they all agreed on was the wreckage was like aluminium foil. But when you crumpled it up in your hands, and you could crumple it like aluminium foil, as soon as you opened your hand, it literally returned to whatever form it was in before you crumpled it up. And this is where they think that the memory metal research has come from, again, from Roswell. The amount of things that actually go back to the Roswell crash that are now suddenly being developed, like, well, it was 1947, so it's what, 60, 70 years ago. They are suddenly starting to be announced in modern day science.
Well, MRI machines are a perfect example, and they've only been around 15 years.
Nobody in 1947 would have been thinking about memory metals. That was so far off, off the technological thinking of the time. They'd never have even considered it.
No.
Why suddenly did memory metals, come into the minds of people in 1947? And bear in mind, there was about 120 witnesses at Roswell altogether who all witnessed this metal and examined it. And it also apparently was covered in hieroglyphic type symbols as well, which they kept record. And the US Army seized the lot. They took it all, but it was actually described as foil, like it was thin but extremely strong, and you could crumple it up in your hand. But the second you opened your hand, it literally popped back into whatever form it was. It was a true memory metal. And they were talking about that back in 1947.
Yep.
Now,
but so MRI technology is all based around this type of our understanding how we can manipulate what they find there. But even Bob Lazar and George Knapp, the reporter you referred to earlier, and the current guy for the last 20 years that's been picking up that trail and going further, Jeremy Corbell, he's an over-the-top character, but he's on the right path. However, that wasn't what I was going to say. The program the S1 that Bob Lazar was working on, the technology was so advanced even back then that they ended up putting it on the shelf for 10 years before they went back to it. Every 10 years they hit a barrier.
Yeah.
So you've also got to keep that linear timeline in line of when technologies break through.
Yeah.
Something gets released once the military have their use of it, and then it comes into the public domain. We take leaps forward every 10 years.
Now, you talking earlier on about not just in the US. Gay and Seago have just been talking about Rendlesham Forest. Now, Rendlesham Forest, I don't know are you aware of Rendlesham Forest, Sam?
No.
I'm not.
Now, Rendlesham Forest is a forest over here in mainland England, and this was a site of another actual UFO sighting by the military. There was a report sent into the local base that something had crashed in Rendlesham Forest. So they sent a squad of soldiers out into the forest to what they thought was either a plane crash or a meteor strike. And when they got there, it was actually the sergeant in charge actually described it as a glowing ball about 5 feet in diameter that was hovering about 4 feet off the ground, and it stood there glowing. And all of a sudden, and apparently they were watching it for about 5 minutes, and then it suddenly got really bright and rocketed up in the air. Apparently, that fast you couldn't track it. So
Yeah.
you know that is probably the most famous British military
Yeah.
encounter with the UFOs
What?
in Rendlesham
Yeah.
Forest.
One of them grabbed an analog voice recorder and recorded some audio that night.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they also found 3 depressions in the ground, so it looked like it had at one point it had actually been standing on 3 legs like a tripod.
Yeah.
But when they actually came upon it, it was hovering about 4 feet off the ground apparently and glowing. And it was there for it didn't disappear straight away. Apparently they surrounded it for a while, debating on what they needed to do with it. They radioed back to the base, and while everything was being sorted out, it literally launched itself up into the air that fast. Apparently, you couldn't even follow it. It just left a light trail as it shot up.
Well, Nick Pope, the guy that used to be in charge of MI5 special ops, is a guy to keep an eye on for that, because he's written a number of books and reports. He goes into a great deal of detail, but nothing still breaches his non-disclosure NDA when he left the military. But he was the director of special ops within England's MI5. Very interesting character, very knowledgeable, very connected in this space. And he's stated with the Rendlesham Forest event that there were back then metals that were still left on the ground. But my question was going to be around, we don't understand a propulsion system that we're starting to be seeing now because it doesn't have one.
Yeah.
But back then, it was interesting that one of the side effects of these craft making contact with the Earth back then was radiation.
Yeah.
So even they've evolved.
Yeah, well, apparently they did radiation tests in the area once it was gone, and radiation levels were normal. They weren't considered anything above ground level, and this is what they couldn't. Yeah, and this is what they couldn't This was what they couldn't understand, because the way it was behaving and looking, they thought whatever it was would have been highly radioactive, and apparently the levels weren't really high for the area when they checked it. But what's interesting about radiation? How many of you know about Travis? There's a famous film about him called Lights in the Sky. Is it?
Skies. Yeah.
Yeah. And Travis was abducted. Now, only recently they have gone back to the area where Travis was from the clearing. Travis was abducted from, and they've done radioactive tests on the trees there. And apparently, all the sides of the trees facing into the clearing where he was apparently abducted from, in the rings of the trees, they're showing radioactive interference from something, but only on the sides of the tree facing the clearing. And all the trees in that clearing have grown 200% bigger and faster than any other trees in the forest. They have literally doubled their growth rate and size since it happened.
Do you think that's to do with the element 115116, or do you think that they've figured out some way of using the power source but making the surrounding areas non-radioactive? Do you know what I mean? Like making it,
Yeah.
See, I agree that they've developed beyond what they had back then is beyond our scope of understanding. Whatever they're doing now with fluid dynamics.
Yeah.
They've evolved it again, leapfrogged ahead again.
Yeah.
I honestly don't believe whatever they do involves radiation. I think they're way past the need of using anything radioactive.
Oh, I
That
totally agree now.
Mm.
yeah, they're using things that aren't emitting huge doses of lethal radiation.
Mm.
Yeah, I've never had the opinion that they actually used any form of radiation like we would do.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But the impact on our materials here on our planet are exactly the same. But I don't think
I am
they're
Kath.
radioactive
Yeah.
even back then. It's just the impact of their technology on our planet.
Yeah. That makes
Does
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gaze
Leaves
put
a trail.
isn't that incredible when everyone thought he was lying, and a lot still do. Yeah. I think it's been about 50 years since Travis was actually abducted, I think now.
Mm.
And that they've only recently done those tests on the trees, Gay, and what they've found in that clearing is absolutely incredible in terms of radiation effects and the growth rates of only the trees in that, on the edge of that clearing where he was apparently abducted from. MCAT's put, I would submit that there are technological advancements every day. It does have to be backlogged to maintain economic viability. So many products have
Products.
planned obsolescence. Yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
I believe that governments all around the world have got technology that could probably explain a hell of a lot of UFOs at the moment, but they simply will not release the technology on the grounds of national security. Now,
Yeah.
50 years down the line, it could be like we've got with memory metals and stuff like that, and night vision technology. They may start releasing them, but I honestly believe that I think they are fully capable of building an anti-grav engine now. I think that they are.
Yeah.
I think the thing that not an awful lot of people are mentioning is, they're saying about a threat to national security
Yeah,
and that. What about our attitudes in our countries? Would it not be the case that these governments want to discover this technology to fight the enemy? Is
Of
that
course they do.
is that the main reason? So um, are these people going into this for the right reason? I don't know. I don't think so in a lot of cases.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, us humans, we're battling with each other all the time, and we're putting an awful lot of money into the military to to possibly battle the enemy. And I think this information, I think sometimes the sole goal of getting this information is to kill each other.
yeah,
Yeah.
Do you know?
yeah,
In
Which is
military
great.
terms, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is, Sam.
Yeah. Stay ahead of the enemy.
Yeah, they need something that could, because now now there's countries all around the world with nuclear weapons. They need to develop something that is instantly going to kill, get to the point where they can instantly stop a retaliatory strike. So if they find some kind of weapon that is capable of wiping out a country instantly, they're going to, then they're not going to reveal it and keep it quiet just in case they need to use it at any point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's military supremacy they're looking for. In this day and age, you've got no choice, because we couldn't afford another conventional war, because the second anybody starts firing nukes, we're all done for.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that funny? I was having a conversation with somebody about COVID. Yeah, we're not going to go there. The UAP program in America, and I agree. I think the governments of all countries are informed about this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced that it's simply an American issue. And the issue I would raise for discussion is, why do we automatically think this thing's hostile? That's a military perspective.
Yeah.
What would the population really do? They say we'd panic and freak out, but what if we wouldn't? Look at Independence Day as a movie, as an analogy, for want of a better expression.
Yeah.
People were out on top of buildings with signs, hey, welcome, all the rest of it. They could turn this planet into something far more better for people than any government ever could.
Oh,
because they're always secretive and protective of their own sovereignty. But the truth is, the whole planet should be thought of as we're custodians of every generation rather than sovereign space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what they're often
Just a thought.
saying? Yeah, they're often saying too, oh, you know, these crafts are going into restricted airspace and stuff like that. If I could fly a plane, but I didn't have the knowledge of restricted airspace, I could very easily get into an aircraft and fly over restricted airspace. And if I hadn't got that communication, I wouldn't know. And plus, you know, that these other technologies probably don't have that communication with Earth and military. So how did they know? How are they supposed to know that they're traveling in restricted airspace? It doesn't mean that it's a military threat, but they still have to look into it. In case this is technology that other militaries are using, but it's highly unlikely, though.
Yeah. There was also only 2 weeks ago that interview with the former director, and I'm trying to look at his name up, but it's on the American 60 Minutes site. He was in charge of the UAP program for the American military and was writing reports that were going nowhere. And he's come out and released a whole lot of information and confirmed, because he was in charge of all of this. He was the one funneling it through the Pentagon to be escalated through. It'll be interesting by the end of the month to see how this Pentagon paper that they're going to release to the Senate report on UFOs is going to pan out, and what they say, and if they'll release some or all or any of it to the public. But it will be a very interesting exercise at the end of the month, 27th, I believe. It's due, but for the first time publicly, the Pentagon will be informing Congress of current information and details on exactly that, what we're discussing tonight. So I think there'll be a lot of people around the globe that will be very fixed on what they admit to and what they won't, and then what they'll release into the public domain.
Yeah.
So watch this.
It's interesting, because if you talk to a lot of ufologists and particularly the people who specialize in abductions and stuff like that, they claim that there are divisions amongst these races. There's something like 11 separate races, something like that they claim are visiting this planet at the moment, from little grey men, Sam's little grey men, right the way up to, really beautiful Viking-looking people, Norse-type-looking people, and giant lizards, which I suppose is David Icke's royal family. And they claim that some of them are coming to benefit us, but others are coming for not so pleasant reasons, shall we say. Because if you think about it, even after everything we've done to this planet is still a gold mine of resources, of minerals and all sorts, and a lot of minerals that are probably hard to get. And I know it sounds stupid, but things like water could be a valuable resource in other in other areas of the galaxy. Things as simple as iron could be rare in other areas of the galaxy. We don't know what this planet has got that other people or things, whatever, would like to get their six-suckered fingers on. You just don't know, so to speak.
For the last 10 years that I can recall, just off the top of my head, in that context, countries all around the world do their annual reporting to the EU, which was an American plan after World War II. So whenever people talk about,
Hang on, should we spy on Julie?
The Illuminati, no. You and sound effects. You and your sound effects. Oh my God. We're going to all just regret this.
What's she?
Is that your version of wetting the lettuce?
That's a bit of alien technology. I've just boosted Julie's mic.
Yeah, that was a launch right there.
Let's just move right along. We're all going to be paying for this for years. Where was I? Oh, water as a resource. What's bringing them to the planet? My thing, I think, is water. As we know, less than 1% of the planet's our water has been mapped, so nobody knows what's truly down there and how deep it goes. Look at the Laurentian Trench. There's also the fact that due to lack of water and drought cycles on the planet as it is today, they're looking at migration movements of people coming from countries because it's drought-stricken and there's no water. There's already mass migration because of that, let alone wars that we create for ourselves. So what you've all touched on there.
She still hasn't a clue. She hasn't her headphones on.
No, wait till she...
Did you enjoy your plop?
We had no idea of the sound effects we just heard.
Well, actually, one of my kitties has a play date today, so I had to go wake them. But thank you, Brett.
We cranked your microphone up for a listen, Julie.
Oh, yes, I'm sure. Yeah, I took the mic with me.
Yeah. It was... It puts a whole new context of wetting the lettuce. Let's just say that.
I know. I heard
You're right there, Stephen. There has been a lot of seismic activity in the South Pacific Ocean.
Well, yes, there has.
You'll keep.
Boys, Julie, boys. Yeah,
exactly.
Payback. Hey,
boys and their toys.
But, it is really interesting, this point about bases being underwater, because I remember reading, there was a couple of books I got back in, God, it must have been the end of the 80s. And they were basically supposedly true accounts. And one of them was of a place called Newhaven. I think it was Newhaven in Wales. And they've got a clump of rocks just off the coast. They're about half a mile off the coast, easily visible from the coastline, and they had a spate of sightings there. There was they were actually visiting houses and all sorts. And there was dogs that ended up dying mysteriously and going crazy and all sorts during these visitations. But one of the things they were reporting was these saucers were plunging into the sea and coming out of the sea during these and they actually reported figures about 7 to 8 feet tall in white, what we would think of as an hazmat suit now. And these people were actually witnessed and photographed walking around on these rocks, looking like they were taking samples and stuff. So it does make you wonder, are the bases around the coastlines all around the world? And if there is, our governments have obviously got to be aware of them. I agree. They've got to be monitoring these things coming in and out of the sea. They've
have to be.
What about the thing we were talking about yesterday, or we were messaging, and I was looking up a couple of articles on the possibility that the moon is hollow and actually artificial.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that theory, I know it sounds very tinfoil hat, but there was a rocket launched at the moon, and it resonated the whole moon for 3 hours like a bell, which wouldn't happen with a solid object.
Yeah. Well,
No.
I've read claims in the past, and I don't know how true they are because I am not an astrophysicist by any stretch of the imagination. But these people who know what they're talking about have claimed that the moon's orbit around the Earth is not natural for the size and the mass of the moon. They claim that it's the orbit is of an object much lighter. So that I've heard claims about the moon being hollow before, Sam. For all we know, we could be having our own version of the Death Star.
Yeah, apparently there's been ancient writings talking about Earth before the moon.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
That's right.
There are.
That is absolutely correct, Sam. That is true.
And as well as that, if you even look with a good, powerful camera at the moon, and you'll see the craters and that. Partly them craters aren't that deep, and it's pretty difficult. There may be sandy stuff on the outside, but it doesn't go down very far, and it's pretty tough, like some sort of metal they theorize about,
Yeah. Seago's made an interesting point there. I do not think there's a reason we still haven't explored the depths of our oceans publicly yet, and I'm no longer convinced that it's because we lack the technology to do so. That could be a definite possibility, Seago, because if you think about it, with all these new polycarbonates they've designed, they do these big glass tubes that you can go underwater and view reefs and stuff. They can withstand immense amounts of pressure, massive amounts of pressure. We probably do have the technology to go down the depths, and maybe that's why we don't, because somebody knows there's something down there that we don't need to see. It's rather like that film The Abyss. It does make you wonder. And if you think about it, you've got films like The Abyss, you've got Cocoon. You've got Independence Day. How many of these films are actually being instigated by government, shall we say?
Yeah.
As some form of conditioning of acceptance of things that may happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Independence Day's got a very American theme to it. But there are other movies out there that don't have as much. But we consume so much of their cultural narrative that we think they're the only bloody country on the planet. But there have been Russian scientists that have been talking about this stuff for as long as Bob Lazar has. There was a guy that came out, I'm desperately trying to remember his name, but I can't. It's only 4:30 in the morning here. And he spoke of similar programs within the Russian KGB were running, black ops sites, and they're the same. They've got exactly the same underground bases and trying to research this technology. And now China's throwing its hat into the ring, and they're going, they've already sent a rocket. They've gone back to the moon to drill down to find out exactly what materials are down there. Because let's remember, all the Apollo missions and Jupiter missions before that and others, they bring back space material, the same as all the rover and everything on Mars. They're drilling into the planet now to find out what's there. I think my own personal humble opinion, take it for what you think it's worth, I think the fact that there's so much interest in Mars is because it was part of a dead civilization. And they're trying to find out whether there was ever life on it. Or whether there's still life underneath.
Jackie's
because there is,
go on.
Because there is still water, but it's deep down.
Yeah.
Jackie's put, I watched a show last weekend about UFOs in Australia, and they were talking about sightings in WA. Is that Western Australia?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the 90s at a military base, that people were silenced and interrogated from what they saw. That happens all over the world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are, oh God, there are too many eyewitness accounts to even log where people have claimed that, you know, the military have got involved in things that, you know, they've had military personnel turn up at their door and they were basically told, shut up or you'll disappear, sort of thing. Which brings us on nicely to Men in Black.
Oh.
Right, Sam.
Yeah.
What's your opinion of Men in Black?
Well, Men in Black worldwide
The Watchers.
is a completely different. We've got our own Men in Black here, but I won't go into that. You know.
Yeah.
The one thing that sticks in my mind is the video footage, and I don't know if it's fake or if it's true, but it's known worldwide, of this lady in this reception. These two Men in Black come in.
Yeah, I've seen that video.
And they leave with her and that. And, you know, a lot of the time, these people seem to be they've got no impressions or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And very pale skin and very, emotionless, if you know what I mean.
A lot of the time, they're described to have no eyelashes or eyebrows, or, you know, they're described as perfectly hairless and not looking quite human. That's
where I think a show like, for example, Fringe, got that part right.
Yeah.
There was a lot in that series. I loved it.
Yeah.
But and it was made here in Australia. But they were pale skin, no eyebrows, and they were the Watchers in Fringe. And I think it raised some very interesting multi-dimensional universe.
Yeah.
Starseed issues of how there's really no missing link in our genetic coding. We just simply didn't come out of apes. It was a fascinating series. I loved it.
Yeah,
and it raised a lot of issues.
That video that Sam's just referred to, I've actually seen. Have you seen the video, Sam?
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting video because they literally walk in and this woman, I don't know whether it's staged or what, but it looks fairly genuine, and it's some kind of rental company or something in it. And these two men walk in. There's no sound on the CCTV. They look at her. They never say a word to her, and then she just suddenly stands up and walks out with them.
I've seen that.
And it is a quite weird bit of film. So, what's your opinion on Men in Black, Julie?
I don't really know. I haven't really read into it a whole great deal, but from what you guys have said, it sounds to me like it may be some ET form. If you're saying that, the Men in Black that come around to these people appear to have pale skin and no eyelashes and things, well, that's kind of describing an extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if they're calling to people's houses that have information and they're told to shut up, would that not mean that they're working with government?
Absolutely. Well, if it was ETs, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. See, what is interesting as well, a lot of the times, is these people don't even advertise the fact that they've seen this thing. You know, they haven't been on the news, and these men they've turned up at houses and knocked on the door, and a lot of the time the people who have spoke to them have said after there's been a sort of dreamlike thing where as soon as they've opened the door to them, they've let them in even though they didn't want to, sort of thing. And they said they've almost felt like it's some kind of controls exerted over them, and that they've sat in the houses and they've asked them questions, and they said they've admitted to answering to things they didn't want to answer to. It's almost like there's some kind of mind control going on.
Like
what's
the movie.
What's also interesting is that a lot of them tend to vanish. Really strange. There's one famous case of a guy who claimed he was he was interviewed by two of these so-called men in black. They left his house, and apparently the second they left his house, this feeling of being dreamlike snapped off. He ran out to follow them to see where they were going, and apparently they walked down the street. He lived on a corner, and he said he could see them going around the street, and suddenly there was a bright flash. He ran round the corner to try and catch up with them, and there was no sign of them.
Wow.
That's a common description.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you think about alien abduction stories, throw this out there as a hypothesis, right?
Mhm.
You've got alien abduction stories going back to the 50s and probably earlier on. If they have been taking our DNA and, for want of a better expression, a hybrid form of a grey and a human was created, wouldn't they fit the Men in Black profile that many people commonly describe?
This is what a lot, that is another belief that's been put forward in the UFO community, that these Men in Black are actually hybrids. That is one of the possible explanations for them. Another one is that they're literally something else in a disguise, or the fact that you get this funny feeling about them, and there's like they're controlling you. Some people believe that they actually don't look like what you think they do. They convince you that's what they look like. There's all sorts of theories in the UFO thing that, there's some kind of hypnotic suggestion connected to them. We just read some of what's been put in chat because I don't want to miss it. Gay says it makes you wonder how much the writers of Doctor Who knew. To be honest with you, Gay, you'll be surprised how many TV programs reflect beliefs in the UFO community, Stargate being one of them. Seago says, I do think that Men in Black films, while fun, were also deliberately goofy to try and make the topic as difficult to discuss seriously as UFOs, aliens. That is another interesting point. Because, is it some way of trying to put disinformation out there, to make it a subject of ridicule to stop people discussing it? Guys, put MCAT Paranormal Research. It was also on Top Fives, whatever MCAT. Yeah, Slap Tammy's a great channel, MCAT. Gay says it makes sense. That makes me think of Black-Eyed Children. See, Black-Eyed Children they're not one of my beliefs. I've got to be honest. And I certainly don't think they're alien in any way, shape, or form. I think just because they've described as black eyes doesn't make them alien in any way, shape, or form.
No.
But I've got to be honest, black-eyed kids are one of the things I'm a bit over. As far as, it's one of them paranormal topics I ain't a great believer in. I've got to be fair. So I don't know how many of you remember. Can you remember Andy from Elemental Encounters?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Andy told me once, and I believe he actually told the story on my channel on one of my streams. Andy claims he was followed home after a UFO sighting by a black car that mysteriously disappeared. Yeah. Andy actually claims he had a not actually an encounter with Men in Black, but that somebody appeared right after him and his mate had witnessed this UFO, and it followed him home, and they had to run off and hide to lose it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, considering where, Andy's from Barnsley, up by where I live, big black fancy cars are not the sort of thing you'd see every day in the area where Andy lives or where I live. They're not the sort of thing you'd encounter here.
Well, I still often tell people, I can remember when I was 7, and I know I was 7 because of where we lived. We lived in a little house in the middle of nowhere. It was absolute bush, middle of nowhere. And me and my sisters were watching a movie one night. My parents had gone out to dinner or something, and we saw a UFO through the lounge room window. And I remember my siblings scattering and hiding behind the couches and things. And I was stuck on the couch just stunned because I was scared. Yeah. But I still remember very clearly to this day seeing a UFO in the sky, and I swear by that. Yeah.
See, I know a woman over here. She is internationally known as an abductee, but, and I've known this woman over 30 years. I don't believe a word of what she's told me. I think she's actually pulled all her information from various genuine cases and made up her own little story because she is a bit of an attention seeker.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, they're out there in the paranormal.
Oh yeah.
She is a bit. She is a bit of an well. She's not. Let's put it bluntly. She's not a bit of an attention seeker. She's a massive attention seeker.
Yeah.
But she has combined a lot of genuine stuff into stories that could be believable to people. Like, you know, she claims that she was once abducted. She was once driving home with her then husband. The car suddenly stopped dead. Her husband had got his hands on the bonnet and couldn't move after they got out of the car, and they took her into the ship and did all sorts of experiments on her. She claims she has got a son now who's probably early 20s. She claims he was as a result of her womb being taken away from her, took on a trip around the galaxy, and then brought back to her and impregnated with whatever. This is how wacky this woman is. You know, she claims she's got medical evidence of it, but she never produces it. But she claims her womb was literally removed, took for a trip around the galaxy for 30 years, and then brought back.
Oh,
you had me interested right up until the womb was abducted.
Till that. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, anybody that knows any gynecological methodologies of the human condition would know that's just bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
For 30 years?
30 years, apparently.
30 years?
30 years. 30 years. She was nearly 50 when she had the kid.
Jeez.
If you'd have set a shorter timeline, if she'd have set a shorter timeline, but 30 years. So she stopped the natural cycles of a woman for 30 years and never went to a doctor, never got investigated for what happened.
She claims she's got medical evidence of her x-rays with no womb and all sorts of stuff.
An x-ray wouldn't show it. It'd have to be a CT scan or further.
She's also claimed that they removed something from her neck, I think it was.
Oh, but that's a common theme too.
Some little chip. This is what I'm saying. This is why I don't believe her. You know, the stories she tells, if you listen to her first parts of the stories, they could be believable. But the more she tells you, the more you start to think, you know.
But the womb one? Oh.
That shit crazy, literally.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that requires...
This woman, I kid you not, this woman has been on British TV. She was flown to America on Concorde to the Jay Leno show, and she told a story on the Jay Leno show as well, years ago. This is how convinced some people can be. You know, I am a firm believer in UFOs and stuff, but you have to be very careful of the people you listen to, because like any other area of the paranormal, there are some right fakes and cooks in UFO circles, without a doubt. There are some very good, genuine people as well. You know, there's some people who investigate scientifically, but like any other, like the ghost hunting community in the paranormal, there are some fakes and cuckoos that lurk in it, big time.
Crazy Train just draws them in like a magnet.
Yeah, pay attention and yeah.
MCAT says we have a biological limitation on what we can experience. The world looks this way to us because of it. It's interesting that some things can bypass it. Spirits et al. Yeah. Yeah. Seago says I've seen 3 in my lifetime. I presume that's UFOs. 1 a triangle of lights when I was very young. 1 an erratic light in the sky as a teenager. Another erratic light in my 20s on holiday. I can say I've only ever seen what I would class as a UFO once, and I was hoping my son's mother was going to pop in the channel tonight because we were together when we were, and she was with me when we witnessed it. And the thing I saw was it was triangular. It was triangular lights, and it flew over us and then disappeared off into and it flew right over the top of us, and it was dead quiet. But that was triangular lights, and it was low. It was quite low, and it was big. But it was 3 triangular lights, and it flew out. It came over us totally silently, and then shut off.
Wow.
And I was hoping she was going to be in tonight, Julie, so she could have told the story instead of me.
Yeah, of course.
Seago says the one. Hang on. Gay said 2 days ago I heard someone saying that they now think that the reason people could live for thousands of years in the past is because 30 days on Earth can be 1 day for aliens. That is actually true, because time actually changes the faster to the speed of sound you get. That is true, and this is why if people travelled out far enough in the galaxy and came back to Earth, 8 months for them could mean 200, 300 years have passed on Earth if they're travelling at fast enough speeds.
Yep.
Seago says the one in my 20s was the most vivid, as I watched this light moving incredibly quickly, seemingly randomly. Then it emitted a light blue turquoise stream of light and vanished.
Mm.
We saw something here about 3 months ago. Did I tell you about it, Julie, when
No.
I was standing on the doorstep having a cigarette and me and Jace were watching it? Or was it you? Did I tell you, Sam?
No.
I told somebody, and me and Jace actually stood and watched it for about half an hour, but it was there for about 3 hours and it never moved. But it weren't a star. It was about that big in the sky, and it just a bright light, and it just hovered there, and it got flash. It got lights on it, but it never moved, and it was in one spot. It got to have been 3 hours. It was still there when we went to bed.
Wow.
No idea what that was, because at first I thought, oh, maybe somebody's got a drone out doing night shots or something, but it never moved once in the entire, and all the stars were moving, but that thing stayed in exactly the same position for the entire 3 hours.
A drone battery wouldn't last 3 hours.
There's no drone now that can stay in the air for 3 hours.
No. Do you think that there's more than one, I would say, kind of extraterrestrial? And do you think all of them visit?
Yeah. Hardline ufologists believe there's multiple races. I'm sure I've heard something up to like 11 or 12 separate races, like I said earlier, ranging from the Sam's little grey men right the way up to giant lizard type, reptilian type things.
Yeah.
And they've got they've got names for all the different races because they've apparently identified themselves to people. What is interesting recently is there's a lot of cases been coming through where people have been claiming that these Sam's little green men or grey men, whichever colour they are, aren't actually a race as such. They're drones. They are created by another race, and they're just used as drones to visit the planet. And they do the abducting. And once they're on the ship, they meet tall and more human-looking aliens who seem to be in control of them.
Wow.
And funnily enough, I am pretty sure that Betty and Barney, it was either Betty and Barney Hill or a case just after theirs, reported these taller humans, and a lot of them they describe them almost like they're Norse looking, with blonde hair and very blue eyes and extremely good looking, but they look pretty much human.
Yeah.
That Norse description even goes back to the cuneiform tablets of descriptions of ancient gods that came down from a skycraft, and also Atlantis. There's a very consistent look that these people had, the blue eyes, the blonde hair, even orange hair was noted back then.
Super. Hang on, can I interrupt you a sec?
Yeah, go.
Julie, can you actually, did you type it? I'm here just in bed, so hard to type, but yes, I was pregnant at the time, and when we saw the UFO bit was summer, and I saw it and asked Brett if he could see it, and we watched it, made no sound. There you go. That's Jay's.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie.
I didn't realise she was in. Cheers, Julie. Sorry, Deb, carry on.
No, I think where I was leading to is out of the research, sort of bringing all the threads of what we've talked about together, you've only got to raise 2 words, Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it all happens there.
Yeah.
Arizona is well known as a UFO hotspot.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is.
The interdimensional beings that have been, so it was out of the research for 20 years or more, and they're still researching it because it's changed hands. But Bigelow's, they've recently, in the last 10 or 15 years, they've come up with 3 types of, this is where the drone theory is. 3 types. So there's greys, who are the workers, the everyday guys. And then there's the blues, who are actually bigger headed and smaller in stature, and they control them.
Yeah.
Because the sighting of a blue is rare. And then there's all the paranormal activity that happens on that ranch, the animal mutilations and so forth. They still can't figure out the surgical procedure on what can skin a calf to the point, but they know it's something that is of our definition, surgical precision.
Yeah. And
they can do it in seconds.
Laser. Yeah.
Yeah.
Julie finished the
because
story.
Because there's no blood or nothing.
Yeah, it was triangular, had lights and hovered right above us and vanished as fast as it appeared. It seemed low, but then it may just have been huge. Yeah. What was interesting about that sighting is it was reported all over the Midlands that night. That was seen by multiple people in areas 30, 40 miles apart, all over the Midlands. That thing was reported, but it was huge. It was massive, whatever it was. Whatever it was.
Have you got a cat ball behind you, Sam?
I just saw that.
There's a load of cat balls in a jar behind me, actually.
Yeah, one of them's going
Well, one
off.
of them's flashing.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's just gone off.
They're in a sealed jar as well.
You're about to be abducted, Sam, by your little green men.
Beam me up, Scotty.
We're here.
With a bit of luck, they might take you somewhere cooler to cool off.
Somewhere with air conditioning.
Yeah, tell them to come and fetch me as well. So I'm absolutely roasted. But yeah, that is the one and only UFO sighting I have had. I remember I didn't feel scared at all, just fascinated, which is so unlike me, as I scare easily, but we were transfixed by it. It was amazing to watch it. And it was totally silent, because even jets, when jets pass over and they're at 35,000 feet, you can still hear them. They've still got that sound to them. There wasn't, and it was at night, it was pitch black. There wasn't, and it came right over the top of us.
That's what I find fascinating. The fact that it made no noise and it was so big.
Nothing.
Yeah.
There weren't even a buzz. You couldn't hear a thing. It was dead silent.
Wow.
But it was spotted all over the place that night. There was no end of reports of it. And it was huge. It was huge. Some people were saying it was like a mile long.
Wow.
Yeah, the triangles do seem a lot bigger than for want of a better expression, the flying saucers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The saucers and discs and even the Tic Tac seem small craft. But those big triangle ones, that footage over Russia and the Kremlin, the 3 of them, they just consume the whole city.
Yeah.
And they're not going fast, they're just cruising.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have a care in the world.
The Phoenix Lights is another, really famous example, and they've never been able to prove what they are.
No.
The Phoenix Lights.
And they were in sight for about 3 hours, weren't they? It was an extended amount of time.
It was a long time. Yeah.
And they passed over the entire state of Arizona. I think they actually came from the neighboring state first. They were reported there first. And then, they flew over the entire state of Arizona and hovered over Phoenix for 3 hours in formation, never moved. And the government tried to make out there were flares and all sorts. You tell me a flare that can keep formation with other flares for 3 hours.
God.
The second the flare's fired, they sink.
But you've I think it was... Sorry, go. I think it was even in the 60s. There was the famous footage of, I think it was the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, of the UFOs that over the White House in Washington, where there's footage, everybody saw it, It was broad daylight, and
Wasn't it
2
Carter?
days.
Wasn't it Carter who reported the UFO sighting? One of the presidents did.
One of the Jimmy Carter is the one
Yeah.
that's openly confirmed that he's seen one.
Yeah.
But this film footage and the story goes back to the 60s. I mean, there's footage of people just sitting on a little embankment having lunch when these things are glowing on a bright sunny day, brighter than the light, and were quite just, defined. And they flew over the capital of, the Washington, and over the White House and all over the city, broad daylight. And there were 6 of them. They showed up 2 days for 2 weeks, and then they were never back. But it is a well-documented sighting.
Yeah.
Wow.
How do you think you'd react? How do you all think you'd react if one actually dropped down in your back garden and something popped out of it? Sam?
I'd be amazed because I've got no back garden.
Good point. That was clever.
Smart ass.
That's the one.
Oh God!
Right, Sam. You were walking down the street and a ship plopped down in front of you. How do you think you'd react?
I would probably react similar to a paranormal event. You would be sort of the adrenaline is start going, but you wouldn't run. You wouldn't run away from it because you want to find out what's this.
Yep.
You're. So something. Say if something moves on a location in a paranormal sense, and you're kind of scared, but you don't want to leave because you want to find out. You want to witness it for yourself. So you sort of kind of hang about, but you'd be on edge at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Julie?
I think I would go. I'd probably be the same. I would kind of be startled, but try to keep a firm ground of staying put and trying to find out as much as I can. If I had the time, I'd press record, of course.
Yes.
But I think the interaction with another being would be the fascination for me.
Yeah.
I'd have to have that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deb?
Yeah.
Ditto to Julie. I've seen one UFO. I've had one personal UFO experience in my time. I'd just be too fascinated. I'm sure the flight or fight response would automatically, because it would just blow your mind on what you were seeing.
Yeah.
But the fascination would just keep me there.
Mm.
Absolutely keep me there.
I'd want to steal something as proof. But saying that, there have been cases in the past where people have said they've tried to steal things off ships, and when they've gone to leave the ship to take them off the ship, they've asked for the things back. They've automatically known that they've got them.
Wow.
But I'd love to do that. I'd go on a ship and I'd nick something as proof to show people.
Yeah.
Something technology that wasn't here. That couldn't have been made by somebody. I'd say, look, there's my proof. I'd love to have, the definitive proof of life on other planets.
Selfie.
Yeah. And hopefully I'd have some wherewithal to rip out my phone and hit record.
If you remember.
But the fascination of it would just wow.
Do you know what would happen though? Do you know what would happen if you took out your phone and started taking photographs? You'd have a big load of people saying that was Photoshop, that's fake.
Yeah,
you would. Because
you would.
Yep.
You would.
That's That's how our technology advances in technology. It's good, but it's bad at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
No doubt. No doubt you'd have people.
Absolutely.
Sego says, I've always been more fascinated than scared in my experiences too. The fear is there definitely, but the curiosity, amazement trumps it. And I think that is what defines a good and a bad investigator. It's that snap decision on whether you'd run towards it or run away from it.
No, I'd go towards
Cat's put the saucer craft lands in your backyard, the doors open, a military officer pokes his head out saying, sorry about that, and flies away.
Yeah.
Could happen. Jackie says, I would be making peanut butter if a spaceship dropped in my front yard, see ya, and running like the fastest person alive. But then you could be running away from, the
the
greatest
most incredible experience of your life.
Yes.
You
Yes,
could be
one
you
in a-
could be you could be that one person who finally proves that there is life out there. You could be as revered as Stephen Hawking in 100 years' time,
Yep.
that kind of thing, solely on the fact of an encounter. That's why, fair enough, if they came out the ship pointing a ray gun at me, I wouldn't run towards them. But, if they came out the ship looking unarmed, I wouldn't run. I wouldn't fancy being probed or anything, or I ain't a big Needle fan, and apparently, the Betty and Barney Hill thing, they explained some quite uncomfortable procedures they had done to them, but she did say that they somehow telepathically removed the pain when it started. But I still wouldn't want to be stabbed and prodded and samples taken and stuff. And then you get these people who claim they've been forced to mate with aliens. Or hybrids to produce more hybrids.
Yeah.
Funny.
But my point is, if they're that advanced, surely they can take a sperm sample without having to resort to them methods. I'd have thought.
Yeah.
That's always been my doubt detector, is when they talk about it.
Yeah.
People that have been abducted, and think through what they're saying. Not with a degree of skepticism like, another tinfoil hat or what have you. But think through, like the lady that reckons a worm was floating in space for 30 years, going around the galaxies. Yeah. Well, which one? But think about what they're saying. The fact that they're coming back with memory of this, as opposed to when you were talking earlier and you raised the issue of the men in black and people that surely if telepathy is their form of control and they don't have vocal cords like we do, for example, and their total form of communication is thought, then they could manipulate the brain to forget that. They could go into the cerebral cortex and make those memories go away.
But if you think about if you think about the technology they have on their ships as well, I mean, they have huge ships that don't make noise. You would think that they would have technology in regard to health, in regard to reproduction, the body, all of that, in a way that they wouldn't need to be invasive.
This is my argument about cattle mutilations and stuff like that. I can't understand why they would come thousands of or hundreds or whatever light years across the galaxy just to carve the tongue out of a cow. Yeah, which is what happens a lot of the time. It's just a piece of the cheek and a tongue. Surely it'd be just quicker for them to beam the cow up or whatever and bugger off with it. Than slice it on the ground. But on the other end of that, you've got the thing about the precision with the way it's done, to the point that they say it looks like it's been done with some kind of laser, high precision laser, who really runs around, especially in the 80s, 70s and 80s, with high precision lasers cutting up cows that, they weren't available then, apart from, to really advance, labs, and they were huge, great things. They were massive. They were room-sized things, lasers. There's no way you'd have had a portable one to do it with. So you've got to ask yourself, why are they doing things like that? It's almost like they want to leave proof behind.
Well, the theory on Skinwalker Ranch at the moment, because I was only watching something on Jeremy Corbell's channel on YouTube about Skinwalker Ranch only a couple of weeks ago. The new owner, the guy that they bought it from, who's also stayed on to be the ranch manager, he and his wife, the story goes, were broad daylight. They heard some sort of a growl from the trees off to their left.
Was it Desmond?
Could be.
Yes,
They claimed it was some sort of a hybrid animal between a yeti and a wolf. It could stand on its two back legs, but it could also run along the ground like a wolf. Had a snout, and anyway, the story that they retold was that the calf, until they were drawn away from it, was fine and healthy with its mother. It was a new calf. By the time they were distracted by the growl or the noises, animal noises from the tree line, and when they ran over and started looking through it, to the point where, and they didn't go deep into the tree line, they came back out. They reckon it was only a matter of minutes, and that's when they came back and the calf was completely stripped.
Yeah.
On its back, all fours, and there were no entrails, no blood, no prints, no nothing.
And what is interesting about Skinwalker Ranch is that werewolf thing they kept reporting that was mutilating the cattle. The farmer actually loaded 6 shots into that thing at one point, and it got up and ran off.
Yeah.
He unloaded a full round, a full clip into it apparently, and he said he didn't miss. He said all 6 shots hit, and the thing just got up and walked away.
Yeah.
Skinwalker Ranch is a fascinating place.
Yeah. It all happens there because they think that creature is actually interdimensional.
Yeah.
The way that it disappears and leaves no trace.
Yeah, well, they also think the same about the ships, because the UFOs that have been reported there have actually been reported appearing out of huge portals in the sky, about 40 feet in the air. These big portals appear and the ships come through them.
That's what the native people describe it as. They just come out of a portal in the sky. It's like, they said it's just like an opening, like a tear in the sky, and they come out. And there's multiple reports of that over time. But yeah, Skinwalker Ranch is a fascinating place. It all happens there. So it's not near water unless there's an artesian basin. So what is the material attraction? What are they getting out of?
God knows.
Yeah.
But Skinwalker Ranch has got it all, from cryptids right the way through to there's also a ghost on apparent reported.
Yeah, the paranormal activity is through the roof.
There's a shaman, an Indian shaman that appears.
Yeah.
Julie's gone quiet again. Sam's rolling a fag. Gay says, Deb, didn't Jeremy Corbell also use a thermal camera and a portal appeared for a while?
Correct. Yeah, that's one of his more, in the last 12 months he's done that. He used a thermal or a full spectrum camera, and he caught a tear opening.
Is Jeremy Corbell that guy with the bad suntan and the really weird hair?
No, he hasn't got a suntan. He's got a beard.
Oh, it's the one I'm thinking of, because there's another guy who's big into the ufology and stuff, and he's orange with massive hair.
Oh, must be an offspring of Trump.
And painted white teeth.
No. He's on YouTube, and he's got some very interesting. But he like George Knapp, they're fascinated with Skinwalker. They did a recent earlier in the year or late last year in December, I believe it was, on his channel, where they sat down with some of the traditional owners and told of their experiences. And that night is when he went out with George Knapp and I believe Robbie Williams was part of the group.
Oh.
The singer,
What,
the English singer. Yep.
Was he?
Yeah, he was part of the group because they've got them at night waiting to go out with these special cameras that are military grade, and Robbie Williams was there amongst the campfire group. So apparently he's got quite an interest in the UFO and the paranormal in general. But he was also a witness to this aperture opening. And it was almost like it detected the camera and then pulled back.
Yeah, Kel says very similar to what I had seen. Portals are about. It's fascinating. I would love to see one.
Oh, me too. Oh.
Sam, you do a lot of ITC and radio stuff. What do you think the chances are of picking something up off one of these craft?
Funny enough, you mentioned that because I got a really weird session 2 months ago outside the doctors, and when you mentioned about being probed, that's I was waiting to.
Do we want to hear this story?
Yeah, I'm thinking there's a prostate coming.
Do you know, I cracked a humorous joke about getting massive needles stuck on my rear end in a half an hour, and then they went on about probes and aliens and the government and all that kind of stuff, and I'm going, what the hell, you know? But a lot of the, I think a lot of the people that would be more. And my uncle was a big fan of UFOs and aliens because he was an amateur. He had an amateur radio station basically, and he used to get these magazines, UFO magazine, and every month you would get a single of alien EVPs basically on a vinyl single free in the magazine, and he had rakes and rakes of these magazines. Now I'm not quite sure about Contact, but those are the people that would have more information than us do in ITC. But people in ITC have experienced weird stuff as well, I suppose. You know, but it's a lot of the people that are into the amateur radio, they're, you know, some of them would get very, very strange communication that, you know, it sparks their interest. You know, yes, we get funny signals, you know, like little beeps and stuff like that. But sometimes that is actually data transfers that you're picking up, you know. And there's a guy, Ringway Manchester. He has a channel on YouTube, and he, in one of the videos, was able to tell us what each type of beep actually is.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a remote control for the key of a car or an alarm system activation and stuff like that, and kind of stuff like that. But there's stuff out of the norm that sparks a lot of these people's interest, you know.
Do you think these, you know, these number broadcasts, Sam, that people keep getting, where it's just a voice rattling off numbers for God knows how long, and they just come and go? Do you think that could somehow be connected? That it's some kind of communication between them and us?
It's that has come up a number of times, but there's two explanations for that, and one could be secret military codes, or there was other you could set up a station and you could hide it in the bushes, and you could broadcast. You could have a broadcast going around in a loop, a special tape with a loop, and you could keep this broadcast going. And it was basically, the whole radio station was a little small box. Yeah. And there were hidden ditches, there were hidden abandoned houses, all sorts. But No, I don't think anybody's ever got to the bottom
Yeah.
of it
The
and
purpose of what they're for.
put that whole mystery to bed, sort of thing. You know?
See, what's quite interesting is SETI, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, has actually confirmed that they have received 2 radio broadcasts from space that they know to be artificial. There is no natural explanation for them, and they're waiting now to hear from it again to try and work out what's going on. And I think that is coming from somewhere from like the Syria, not actually Sirius itself, but I think it's somewhere in that general area of the sky. It's really interesting that. Hi, Deborah. It's really interesting that they've now confirmed they've had 2 definite broadcasts that that they know are not naturally, because radio signals can occur naturally in space, but
Yeah.
they know these 2 they've picked up are definitely artificial in nature. If
Yeah.
anybody's interested, you can actually download a screensaver that helps SETI, and while your computer's doing nothing, it crunches the numbers for you and sends the data back to. I used to run it on my old computer. I need to set it up on this one, but it's actually fascinating because you can actually watch the data as it's coming through your computer and stuff. It's absolutely fascinating to watch.
Yeah. The great thing too about ISS, every 60 something minutes, ISS, which is the International Space Station, travels around the Earth, and you can watch it live. And if it comes near your area, you can still pick it up on ham radio. They still use ham to this day. Ham radio.
Yeah.
It's
interesting because they have. I know one of the shuttle crews reported a UFO. And me and Sam were talking about this yesterday privately on Skype, and I actually Googled it, and there has actually been reports from the International Space Station of UFO sightings as well. Believe it or not, one of them was one of the Russian cosmonauts who reported it. But I know for a fact one of the shuttlecraft crews actually reported they were being followed by one. They were actually being buzzed by it, and the US government tried to cover, because a lot of Americans listen to the transmissions while they're still in low orbits, and they cut the signal out to stop it, but it got out anyway. But there was actually a conversation between the shuttle crew and Houston or Kennedy, whichever one it was, that they were saying there's something following us, and they were looking at it through the window. So that there's been a few astronaut sites, and the amount of commercial pilots that have reported things are unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
But how I got into the paranormal was through and I've spoken about this before briefly, is through my amateur ham radio interactions. And Sam's point before is absolutely right. We get numbers, we get all sorts of weird stuff that we pick up, and nobody looks at it from an alternative perspective, for want of a better record or way of wording it. But if there was ever a group put together to look into this stuff, there'd be information all over the world through ham radio operators, because they're 24/7.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. I'll raise some other points later on, because but talking about sound, you've only got to look, for example, as an analogy or an example of YouTube channels with different variation in hertz for meditation and calming and, chilling out, for want of a better expression. And the reason that comes out is research on the brain done in the late 50s, right through the 60s, 70s, the 80s with Timothy Leary and his altered states of experimentation and others. This altered state of consciousness is a very under-examined or explored aspect of humans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people say sometimes, "Oh, I had really weird dreams last night." Well, you know, write them down. And a lot of times people can't even remember them.
Mm-hmm.
They know they had the experience, but they've got no memory of the dream per se.
Mm-hmm.
How do they know they haven't picked up on a frequency that's put them in touch with whatever?
Mm-hmm.
The potential for that is quite real.
I'd like
The
to see them
subconscious
look at.
picking up.
Yeah, I'd like to see them look at the brain more. Look at what the mind can do and test the boundaries of the brain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, we've been
Absolutely.
talking about aliens for 2 hours. So what we can do now is move on to a more general chat if you want to now, because I think we've done well to talk about. I know it's a big topic and I can talk about it for hours, but people in the chat's probably getting bored about hearing about little green men. So what we'll do now, we'll open up the chat to broad paranormal topics, and if anybody wants, no problem, Gay, you have a good night. If anybody wants to put any questions or raise topics in the chat, feel free. But any of you who are on the panel got any paranormal topics you want to discuss? Anything paranormal related? Daniel Shatterguns.
I'll think about it for a second. I did. Yeah.
I'll do.
Sam?
Go on, Deb, if you want.
No.
All right.
I'm trying to stay. Yeah, I'll take a moment like Julie, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Go for it, Sam.
I'm sort of lately I've been looking outside of doing, rather than just doing spurt box sessions, doing visual ITC as well. And I don't know if anybody else has done it, but I found, there's a couple of methods. There's a loop method, and then there's just you turn on the TV and you just examine static and whatever.
Static.
And then you got the video loop method. But I use an AV mode on this little television, which is a little citizen TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And this actually cost me less than a tenner, and it scans UHF and VHF analog television, but it actually does pick up radio stations. So basically, it's a spurt box that scans UHF. Yeah. But what I do
Great
as well,
stuff.
what I do as well is I connect audio into the line in on the TV, and the sound alters the screen. It flashes up and down with the level of sound going into the screen, and that's what I'm working on the last couple of days. And people are saying that they're seeing stuff on the TV, but I really need screenshots or timestamps, because when it comes to visual ITC, I have to slow it down frame for frame for frame.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody else has done it, but it's such a simple thing. It's such a simple thing. I can't imagine it's been missed, that kind of way.
I know in the 80s there was a woman who used to do it a lot, but she literally used to record from her TV. But I haven't heard of anybody doing it recently.
Yeah,
I know of one person, I won't say their name, but I know of one person that does it, but I think that they use a small television. No. They use more of a small television. I don't think that they use anything like what Sam has.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's completely new. So, yeah.
Yeah, there is, a solid state TV where they turn it on and they put it on a static station.
Yes.
But this method is I'm feeding in the audio from the spirit box through the television, and it's affecting the screen. It's flashing up and down with the level of audio going into the screen. So I don't know. Maybe it'll bear fruit. Maybe it won't.
Try it.
But it will take time, and if the communicator's here to communicate through my spirit box, maybe it'll take time to get used to something else.
Yeah.
But people are saying that they're seeing things, but I really need the screenshots, or I really
Yeah.
need the timestamps. You know, otherwise I can't go back over it and check, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
On-
thinking there's
I know in
continuing
the
it
early
on.
80s, your visual stuff like that using a TV was probably more common than the audio stuff.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
it was more studied, and then it
Yeah.
suddenly, when you start, when spirit boxes and stuff started coming in, it just lost its popularity. And
that's right.
I used to love the visual stuff. I
You
Yeah.
used
don't
to
get
absolutely
Yeah.
love it.
you don't get an awful lot of it now
Yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube or anything like that. But there is a couple of channels, and I don't know exactly where they are or who they are. But there's a couple of people that mentioned that some of these people have captured really good stuff.
Mhm.
Do you know?
I started using it. Remember those little portable TVs? They were like brown, tan sort of things, and
Yeah,
you could carry them around. That you used to
yeah,
have in
yeah.
kitchens and places like that. I used to plug one of those in and tune it into my ham radio. But I started getting into that in the late 80s, early 90s. And for whatever reason, my perspectives changed and I never really pursued it. I may go back to something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to do other things, and I've got plenty on my bucket list to do, like getting my channel up and running and all that sort of stuff.
Like
But
Sam's coffee mornings.
yeah, well, yeah.
See,
What
Sam,
happens soon?
them little coffee mornings, it'd be ideal time to do stuff like that.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Especially if you got us lot sitting on there with you staring at the screens and saying what we're seeing.
Yeah, because I actually have a box shelving on front of my computer, and one of those box shelves is a tiny little stage studio. So basically, it's a little box, and what I do is I put a cardboard box over the screen so it will block out reflection. So I've got a little tiny controlled environment. It's basically a little tiny studio about that size that I put all that into,
Yeah.
But I did. I recently bought a television, and I don't know if you've seen it in a video, but it looked like something out of a submarine.
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
And when you turn it on the side, you can actually turn the screen around as well. It's a pretty amazing piece of kit.
Deborah says it seemed like it did react when you asked questions the other day, Sam. She says she'll timestamp them next time.
Yeah. There was a couple of occasions where the screen just went green when I asked. And it happened 2 times in a row. And I went and I checked the batteries, but I didn't document it on video. But the batteries were both all over 50%. So I don't know what was going on there,
You'll be all right if you're doing it one day, Sam, and the face of a little green man pops up on you. You're going to be well buggered then.
I know.
You see this little green face appear, and it'll go greetings, Earthlings. Anybody got any other topics they want to cover? Go on, sorry, Deb.
Yeah, the ham radio community, I think, getting into linking up with people like Sam, that would be a good hybrid experimentation stream to follow, but it would take time because even in the white noise, you're still unlocking images. That I know for a fact.
Yeah.
But what you're seeing, you don't know what you're seeing, but studying the images that are sort of deeper, even still, into the white noise is laborious and time-consuming.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam, go.
The thing that sparked this off for me was seeing a video. It was on a channel called The Modern Rogue, where they showed us how to imprint visual images in an audio spectrum, which I thought was How do you do that? And apparently, on a couple of albums in the past from rock groups, they had symbols in the audio spectrum, and yet you needed software to actually see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and back in the 80s, that wasn't even a thing that anybody thought of, was, software to pick up what you were seeing, and yet with understanding. But Brett touched on it earlier, that these symbols, quite often, you can be hearing like equations or another language.
Yeah.
In the deep parts of the hertz when you really drive into it.
Yeah.
And you've really got to sit there and fiddle with your radio to get it tuned in right. It can be, it's not 1.2, it's like 1.1.0003, and finding it and then trying to capture it again can be a very tricky thing. And it's, as I said, I doubt if it'd work on a stream, simply because it's such a time-consuming, laborious thing that it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
It's not something you're going to get every time, but every now and then you'll hit a gem, and it's a ripper.
Yeah.
There is a topic I'd like to bring up with your permission, Brett.
The
types of channels that I've observed over the last probably 6 or 7 months or so, and you and Sam have alluded to channels in the UK that have gone down this pathway, but it appears to be a real phenomenon now here in Australia, where people claim to be paranormal channels, and all they get is attention seekers, crazy trains, and drama queens, and that's all. They don't do or talk about anything to do with the paranormal. It can become a ecosystem within itself, and definitely not positive. It's a toxic thing that needs to be excised out of the community, but it appears that the human condition is more interested in the drama and the BS and the backstabbing and, double entendre, pooping on people that have helped build their channels.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you guys in the UK or anyone that's listening can help us to try and perhaps nut this out, and what you guys have learned and what you think's the best approach, because it's just toxic. It is just a toxic environment of either smut.
Seago says drama on YouTube. I don't believe it.
It's true. It's true. I've seen it. I'm legally blonde. I've seen it. It's on the news. I've dropped into so many channels over the last couple of months, and honestly, there's not a damn thing of the paranormal other than you guys and Julie that I can see, and that's not because you're sitting here. It just happens to be a statement of fact, in my humble opinion, because all they're talking about is just rubbish and backstabbing somebody that's not there that night, and then the next week they're all over them worse than applesauce on a pork chop. And the toxic ecosystems that these channels create attract a certain type of person, and it's not healthy for anybody, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the paranormal. So how you and Sam have raised the issue of these types of channels in the UK, they're global. It's not just but it appears to be have hit our shores 18 months behind you guys. And yes, it's okay for people to say, well, just unsub or block people or whatever, but it's a real living thing. And that's all these people do is just feed off drama and the attention seekers. Oh my gosh, man!
You see, YouTube.
They're just they
I'll
create.
let you go first now. Go on, carry on.
They're the toxic nucleus of all the nastiness that goes on behind the scenes, and then they bring it onto their channels.
Mm-hmm. Before Sam answers, I'll just read what Stephen's put there. That's why a lot of people left YouTube and went to DLive. That is actually very true. A lot of channels over here did go to DLive. Go on, Sam. What were you going to say?
When it comes to the paranormal itself, and it's been said many, many times, people want instant gratification without doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there is videos and channels out there with education and from top, people with a lot of experience in the paranormal, and it's to a lot of people. That's boring. We want to see the scary stuff and the jump scares and the Desmonds and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as the community itself, some of the drama happens by viewers, and what happens is, you think you might have a nice tight-knit community, and next thing something flares off, and next thing you don't see them again because they've broken off and they've put all that energy into a war amongst themselves, and you end up it's a loss that you have to take sometimes,
Yeah.
The community isn't 100% stable a lot of the time, You do have these outbursts at times and you lose people. But that's just the way it is, really,
Yeah.
But Sam, I would say these people are not bloody stable to start with. But they come on and they seem to feed off it, this negativity and this drama. Oh my God.
Over here, we seem to have got into a really strange situation as far as the paranormal community is concerned. And from what I've heard of people who are in other sections of YouTube, it seems to be happening there as well. So I don't think it's something exclusive to the paranormal, but I think it's more of a YouTube phenomena.
God, that's
our community is split into like 3 separate groups. You've got the people who want to do paranormal, as in genuine paranormal, and it's going to be boring for a lot of people. Let's be honest. This stream ain't going to appeal to billions of people because it's talking pure paranormal. There's no Desmonds popping up and growling or anything like that. But that ain't what my channel's about anyway. My channel is about podcasts about paranormal subjects. And a misconception with a lot of people on YouTube who don't necessarily run a channel but just view in, they don't see the paranormal as anything past ghost hunting. And this is the fault of these big bloody TV programs like Most Haunted and Ghost Adventures and all that lot. And that's the only bit of exposure a lot of people have had to the paranormal, so they don't realise how massive the paranormal topic is. There are billions of different subjects you can talk about on the paranormal for hours at a time, but they won't appeal to the vast majority of people who are in the main group that we've got over here, which is what I call the paranormal entertainment channels.
But they're so few and far between.
Yeah, over here, the paranormal entertainment community is by far the biggest community. Would you agree with that, Sam?
Oh, big time, yeah.
And this, this is the chat. Hang on, let me get mine out, and then you can add to it, Sam. These are the channels that do all the there's a Desmond growling. I've been scratched. I'm going to the poltergeist house. All this kind of crap. People who are genuinely into the paranormal, especially with things like claiming they go into a poltergeist house, would know that poltergeists are linked to a person and not a property or an area. They are linked to a person. You speak to anybody who I won't say expert, but anybody who's done a lot of research into poltergeists will tell you they seem to center around a person or a place. And
Correct.
they feed, and it is ignorance a lot of the time, or it's done for the drama of it, because they know that these people are just looking for the cheap jump scare and the bit of titillation. So that's the first lot. I ain't so bothered with them. The only issue I've got with that kind of channel is they try and put out what they do as genuine paranormal, when we know a lot of the time it's over dramatized, and sometimes in some cases it's invented. Let's not beat about the bush. It's faked, or things are claimed that are not true, right? The second community is the channels like mine and Sam's, where we do, just talk about paranormal or specialise in a set area. Sam specialises in ITC. I do general paranormal podcasts. Then you've got this third community, and these are the ones that have been raising in prominence lately, and they're what our class as the drama community. Now you'll find 90% of these channels, they're only smaller, they're small channels like us, 1,000 subs or so, and they suddenly realise that they can actually get more views and people joining their streams by not discussing the paranormal itself, but by taking chunks out of other paranormal channels or people on paranormal channels.
Yep.
And this is the problem we've got at the moment. There's no sharing or camaraderie in the UK community as such. Well, there is, but they're small, tight-knit communities like me and Sam do. Where Sam comes on my channel, and I've said if she'll do a stream, I'll go on hers. But a lot of people won't do that. There's this thing like they're obsessed with YouTube rather than the paranormal, and that they are the bottom. And this is going to piss some people off, but they are the bottom feeders of the paranormal community.
Absolutely agree with that.
They do nothing paranormal related. Like I say, the channel has nothing to do with the paranormal. They just bottom feed, and they look for any excuse to tear somebody to pieces, just to get views and start wars. And then you get these battles that start, and these people, they split off into two separate groups. They have their little war, and then all the viewers gravitate to one side of the argument or the other. And some of these arguments can go on for ages, and not just months. They can go on for a couple of years. And then people start to get bored with it, so they somehow form back together again, and they all become friends, and then they all turn on one another because they've got no argument. They've got nobody else to pick on, so they'll turn on themselves, and then it splits off again into another community, and then these two sides start going again, and it's a continual cycle. And we've had it over here for a good 18 months, same with Sam.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds like you're probably just getting it starting over in Australia.
Yeah.
So what do we do with the hosts that get proved as liars? What do we get? How do we manage, other than unsub? There's got to be a better, more adult way.
There's nothing you can do There's nothing you can do
where the hosts are proved liars and they contradict themselves in their own bloody screams.
There's
What's
nothing
that all about?
There's nothing you can do to actually stop them, because once they've got their little camps and they've got their group of people around them, they just have the war. And nothing you say, you could sit there and give them 200% proof of something, and these little camps will totally ignore that because they're not interested in the truth. All they're interested in is the war. That's all they're interested in. And then you'll find you've got people. You'll get people coming in your chat who regularly come in your chat, and they'll start saying things to try and goad you into saying things. Now, I always say, and I've always done this, if anybody has a stab at me or my channel, I won't argue with them. I don't get into a battle with them. I just cut them dead. Simple as. They get banned off my channel, and I do not associate with them ever again. Because as far as I'm concerned, you need two people to argue. If you take one of them people away from that argument, there is no argument to be had. All they end up doing is talking to themselves. So all you can do with these sorts of people is simply cut them dead and have nothing else to do with them. That is the only way you'll deal with it. You won't stop them still digging at you and saying stuff, because they'll try and carry it on for as long as possible. But the longer you hold up from saying anything, the faster the hassle will stop with them. Because the second you make any single remark back to them is the second they've got you, and they will never let go after that. Never.
We have these channels. They're like a paranormal drama alert type commentary channels. And the thing is, I don't take 99% of them seriously at all, because one, they don't discuss paranormal stuff. They discuss drama with the viewers, and two, a lot of these people haven't done an investigation in their entire life. They're, as you said, bottom feeders. And and as you have a load of people bombarding your channel with negativity.
You'll find, Deb and Julian, there's no way you'll stop it completely.
Yep, cut it off.
Because the second you stop that argument dead in its tracks, they've got nothing to work with. And all they can do is sit there and bitch to their little group of friends about you as much as they want to. They will find that little group of people aren't really their friends anyway. They're there for the drama. They've just picked a side.
Yeah, all they'll do
is that they will sit there and try to cause as much trouble as possible, with this person. Then they get bored and desert them. And this person will find in the end they're left sitting on their own with not a single person talking to them, because not one of those people is truly interested in the channel. All they're interested in is the drama they can cause.
Well, it's funny you should touch on that. It's funny you should touch on that, because I've started to notice as I've searched, so-called paranormal channels on YouTube, you start to see the same names in these destructive, toxic environments. And it's like, oh, I didn't expect to see you here. Hello. So you keep it friendly. You're not, you acknowledge them in a polite way. But, there are more and more, I'm noticing that there are people in the chat that are drawn to being toxic like that against somebody or a couple of people, and they're always in the drama channels. But me innocently going looking for other content that's good, as I keep saying, it's extremely rare. I don't last half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour by the time I realise it, but I see the same names all the time. And I've started, as soon as I see their names in a chat, I stay for a polite 15 minutes and then go, I've got an appointment, I've got to go off, or see you, good night, or, whatever. And I just leave. That's the only thing I can do.
Me and Sam are lucky over. Go on, Julie. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's a good point, is to take notice.
Me and Sam are really lucky over here, because we have stuck to just paranormal. We have both pulled communities around us who we don't get any hassle with at all. The people who come in my channel are brilliant, and and I like to make them part of the stream. That's why I like to read out what they've said, and have discussions on what they've said, because you'll find a lot of channels that they do these live streams and they don't take a blind bit of notice of what's going on in the chat. They just babble on their own merry way, and they don't make people feel welcome in the channel. And because I've done my damned hardest to make the people who come in my channel feel part of the channel, I've been lucky that I don't get any troublemakers. If anything, it's the exact opposite. I get people who contribute a damn lot to my channel. And I think that's the secret to having a decent channel, is you get those sort of people around you. You get the people in who are interested in the subject and who ain't interested in the drama. And it's brilliant once you can get and I'm lucky I've got a community like that, as a Sam. But even us, we'll get it by it occasionally, but I just don't get involved in it. I refuse point blank to get involved in it.
And that's the thing, I think that, I have learnt on my time on YouTube is the fact that I have never asked for or wanted any kind of bad or negative attention in my rooms, and I didn't encourage it, but sometimes it just happens.
Yeah,
and
there's
I
nothing
think
you can do about it.
Exactly, your point of saying pay it no attention and cut it off, and eventually they get the gist of it. And I think that's the sound advice you can give. Definitely.
That's all you can do, Julie, because the
Yep.
second you start retaliating in any way, shape, or form, you've given them the opening they need.
Yeah,
And
I'm not like that.
the only way to deal with it is to totally ignore it and cut it off.
Exactly.
And let them go and find another victim. That is the only way to deal with it. And then just cultivate a good community around you, like I've got here, who will prepare to join in and type in the chat and put suggestions. Because I always say to people, put stuff in the chat, because I may not agree with it, I may agree with it. I have changed my opinions on loads of things because of things people have put in my channel. And they've said something, and I thought, do you know what? That actually makes more sense than what I currently think. And I've looked into it, and I thought, yeah, they're right. And I've actually changed my opinion on things over people in my channel, because that's the way I've cultivated my channel to be. I like people to be part of my channel. I don't want to sit here babbling on and just totally ignore what they're saying in chat, because
that's just
I
rude.
don't see the point of having a live stream if you are going to sit there and totally ignore the people who have took the time to come in your chat.
Of course
and
not.
took the time to type something to you.
I think that's important too, the distinction made, like as you said before, there are different groups. And I think you have to, especially for new people that come in, we all have to make that distinction straight away, is that this is paranormal and strictly paranormal, and that's what this channel's about. We don't do any of that other business, and let's get on with it.
It doesn't have to be all stuffy and dry. You can have your laugh while you're doing it.
No.
I was waiting for a sound effect.
That he was making a point, you see.
Yeah.
testing.
Yeah. You can have a laugh while you're doing it, and you can have a joke.
Of course
and,
you can.
We get close to the knuckle sometimes with adult topics, but the channel stays on the paranormal. We may laugh at double entendres and stuff like that, but we stay on the paranormal. We don't take the piss out of anybody in chat. I'm not rude to anybody in the chat. If they're rude to me, I ask them to stop. If they do it a second time, they get kicked out and banned.
Yeah, they're
Simple
gone.
as. But I very rarely get any trouble in my chats, because the people I have in there are serious about the paranormal. They want to listen to paranormal talk. They don't want to listen to drama. And if you can crack that with your community, you're golden.
Yeah. It's ironic that you should touch on that, because over and above the fact that there are a couple of channels that just lie straight out to their people that come into their chat rooms, which is, I find, totally unprofessional and disgraceful, actually, to be that. Yeah, I don't like lies to start with. But the other trend that I've noticed is the sort of subset of the people that are hosting it is the attentions under the title, the attention seekers. And what I've found is, what I have observed in these lower, really not paranormal channels, they're just drama sets, is that there's always one or two people, usually one that just crave the attention and can't wait to have an opinion or stir the pot. So there's the two distinctions. There's the attention seekers and the stirrers. But the attention seekers go in there for a while. They're all over the host like a bee to honey. And then suddenly there'll be an argument, a disruption of some description. And alluding to your point earlier, the groups will break away, and they end up ruining the original channel. In what I think, in the long run, not in the short term, but in the long run, the drama queens come in simply to pinch subs off other channels, and then they break away, and people are losing, and these are small channels, not big, well known, but these attention seekers, they're just like a toxic vacuum. They just suck at they're like a Death Eater. They just suck the life out of a channel, split off subs to build the attention seeker up, and then once they think they've got enough, or they hit 1,000 and can get monetized or whatever, and some of them have only got like few, they're lucky if they've got 100 subs, and they just go in there to pinch subs off other channels. Have you guys seen or experienced any of that?
Well, we don't, in general, we don't have the pinch subs, because if a channel, say if a big channel gets involved in controversy and it goes way, way pear-shaped, and the next thing there's loads of drama going on for months and months and months, we can just sit back and watch the subscribers crawling in, because they've just abandoned ship and they've got sick of the drama. They want a peaceful place to go. They start looking in other places. And that's what I find every time there's a drama episode, involving a group or a group of viewers. If you keep your nose clean, these people will go searching for a peaceful place to go. And if they want a nice peaceful place to go, we're paranormal, there's no bullshit, no who slept with who and all this crap, and all this fake stuff, and people pulling the wool over viewers' eyes, begging for money all the time. People get sick of that stuff, and they're going to find a new ship to board. And very often, that when episodes like that happens, the people that keep the nose clean, their subs start climbing around that time of that drama. Getting stuck into it, not a great idea, because you could end up ruining your whole channel, because you could just
that's what I've noticed, is that the attention seekers come into somebody else's channel and they virtually take it over, and all they're there for a short time, and they're just trying to draw subs all the time, talking about themselves, their channel, blah, 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 blah. Me. And then there's always an exit point. But as I said, the one bit that it drives me absolutely insane is the disgraceful display of when the hosts deliberately lie to their subscribers and the people that, as you said, spend the time to come and listen to them, and on their own streams they're lying. They've contradicted themselves 3 or 4 times. I just don't understand that.
Like, it's not something small.
No, it's not small. They've either, like the example of the lady that you guys refer to a lot, the one that's dying all the time. There's always an illness of some description. And then if it's not that stream, which quite often it is, they've contradicted themselves so many times, and you can see it in their body language. They're scrambling for an answer when someone tries to say, well, what's the medical condition? What medication? What have you done? Whatever. You can see them scrambling in their brain because they're just deadpan and they're thinking of a bullshit story to continue, how sick they are. When in actual fact, it's not what you think. If you listen, but that just blows my mind. When you get the host lying to their own subscribers blatantly, and they contradict themselves in their own streams, I just find that disgraceful beyond words. It's so unprofessional. It's so disrespectful to the people that come into the streams. But then you've got that next category, which I alluded to a few seconds ago, you've got the drama queens and the attention seekers, and then you've got the shit stirrers that come into the channel, and they become, as I said, the more you look for as Sam put it, a safe space that does want to talk genuinely about the paranormal, which is a broad umbrella church, which is why the UFO topic tonight fits under it very, very well.
But you look how much information filtered through from the chat tonight about different things.
We didn't even.
You could see. You can tell the people who know what they're talking about in chat.
Yep, absolutely.
You can see it a mile away.
Gay and Stephen were brilliant. I mean, they raised some really good topics.
Yeah.
The risk is that
Seago was spot on with all his UFO stuff.
Yeah.
The risk is that, YouTube becomes as toxic as Twitter and Facebook. And YouTube is social media creators' platform.
Yeah.
People are doing streams about, I'm coming on because I'm really angry because Mary, the stupid bitch, done it again. And she done this yesterday and she said this about me today. And anybody that's new to the channel will go,
I ain't gonna have a clue who they're talking about.
Who the flip is Mary and what's this all about?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So
go on, Sam. Sorry.
This is not a place for that.
Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head there. YouTube is a creator's platform. People are treating it as if it's a visual YouTube. And this is where a lot of the problems, a visual Facebook, sorry. And this is where a lot of the problems are coming from. This isn't a social platform, it's a creator platform. But people are using it as a social platform. You've hit the nail.
Oh, that's a very interesting distinction.
Bang on the head there, Sam.
Yep, absolutely.
But as I said before, you go to some of these channels that are just drama channels and you see the same people and they're right in the thick of it. They just love the drama and the shit stirring and stabbing people in the back. And, I've actually observed here in Australia, which is why I've raised this topic, listening to what you and Sam have said regarding what's been happening for the last 18 months, you can see what's coming down the pipeline with when you see the same people. And as soon as I start to see them now, I'm out of there.
Yeah.
I don't stay. And it's the only way that I can keep that toxic bullshit where it belongs, and it's not part of what I'm into. It's not what I went searching for in the first place.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
All you can do in that respect is distance yourself from it. Don't get involved with it because they do eventually implode. They turn on themselves in the end. So just let them get on with it. It's the best way
I have to actually say thank you to you three for helping remove my blinkers and giving me my sight back, because I think one of the most valuable things that you guys have taught me in regard to my channel is, number one, go in the direction that you want your channel to go to. But number two, observe and act accordingly. I should say, So yeah.
Well, after all, regarding you, Brett and Sam, I'm not there yet, but I'm planning to. I've learnt so much from listening to you guys and your experiences of how this YouTube platform really works. And Brett's and Sam are absolutely spot on. It is a creative platform.
Yep.
But I've also noticed that the types of people that the paranormal title attracts,
it's not just
they need psychological interventions.
It's not just the paranormal though, Deb. This happens on various scales in all out. The only problem we have, and this might upset people, I do apologise, but by the very nature of what the paranormal is, it attracts a lot of loonies. And there's no getting around that fact. It does attract a lot of loonies. And you've got, so you don't tend to get many loonies in the crafting section, for example, or in the motor racing section. But the paranormal, by its very nature, does tend to, attract a lot of loonies. And so you've also got to take that into consideration. There's that element of it that compounds the problems within the paranormal community. So we do have it a little bit more difficult than than some other areas because of the types of people the paranormal will attract, apart from normal people. Because you will get the loons and the attention seekers, because it's an ideal platform, because you can't prove or disprove anything. So they can literally claim and say what they want, and there is no way you can disprove them. It's the perfect platform for them.
Yeah, we have a lot of information in the quest for entertainment, and people think that they go out and they're being chased by demons. They think that that's all real, and they go on to other people's channels, and then they start talking about demons, and we're looking at where are you getting that information from? I was told that this was haunted and that was cursed and this was cursed and you're not supposed to do this and I go, oh God.
You know my opinion on armchair mediums. I've never ever made any secret of it. And I think as much as I love the input from the people who come on my channel, you notice there isn't a single armchair medium person in my chat. Because I make it blatantly obvious that I'm not that kind of channel where I will sit there and just blindly accept what people say just to keep them happy. And I expect them to be the same with me. If I say something and people disagree with what I say, I'd rather they put it in the chat and we can have a discussion on it. Like I say, I have done that loads of times, and I have actually turned around and learned something off people.
People don't like it when you're honest.
Yeah, but I don't want my channel full of yes men. I want people in my channel who've got their own bloody opinion on the paranormal. And it doesn't have to agree with mine, as long as they've got an opinion. But I won't tolerate people sitting in my channel sensing this and sensing that just to make themselves feel special. It's not what my channel's about.
I used to get a lot of that when I did live spirit box sessions. And I've noticed that that's dwindling away since I've stopped doing that. So bigger and better things coming.
Pole dancing.
Just
magnetized.
Just enjoy what you're doing and stay focused. It is very easy to get addicted to certain dramas. I've done it in the past, and it actually
we've all been sucked into them. It's human nature.
It will give you depression, and you may turn around and say, "What's the point in doing this?" Because it's just all drama, and that you have to distinguish. A lot of the drama hasn't got anything to do with the paranormal at all. It's just a clash of personalities within the viewing community that fall out, and it's not your fault. It's just sometimes it happens. But to bring that drama into your channel, goodbye.
There's some people out there who will look at you, and just looking at you is enough for them to hate you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you get all sorts out there.
See, I know I'm opinionated. I know I am. But just because I'm opinionated doesn't mean that I'm not prepared to listen to other people's views. It's just that I strongly believe in my own opinions. And like I say, if people can give me evidence that's contrary to what I believe in, I will happily accept it. You know my opinion on religion. If somebody could come on this channel today and prove to me that Jesus Christ was real, I would immediately convert to a Christian. I wouldn't not do it just because I've sat here for God knows how many years saying, I don't believe in religion. If somebody could prove to me without a doubt that there's no that there's a God, I would convert. I wouldn't just kick against it and say, no, that's what I believe, so bugger it.
Yep.
And I know I know I've got a, quite a big personality when it comes to stuff like that, and people struggle with it. But I would rather people disagree with me than sit there all day going, yes, Brett, you're right, Brett.
Oh,
Because that does nothing in the end.
Yes, you're right, Brett.
None of us learn from it, though, Julie. If you're going to sit there with a channel full of people who suck up, kiss your ass all the while, none of you are going to learn. Whereas if you sit there and all say, well, I've had this happen, I believe that happens, then it starts a good discussion.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Me and Brett don't fall. We don't fall out.
Oh God, me and Sam are poles apart on some of the things we believe in.
And sometimes people would say, well, they're all the time disagreeing on something. Maybe there'll be some drama and they'll hang around and stuff. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. We are adult about this. Do you know what I mean?
We make a joke.
Yes.
Sam and a little green man. We make jokes about it with each other about the things. We never argue over anything.
No.
Yeah.
Even things we don't agree on.
Yeah.
It's part of the learning process too, having different opinions and, being exposed to them different opinions. You may learn something from it,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's called adult debating.
Yeah. Kim's put there, I've always said, if you have a problem with someone, keep it private and discuss it one-on-one, not public. Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is the problem. People sometimes keep it private, but they discuss it 1-on-10, if you know what I mean.
Or they don't say anything directly.
That's what I've just said. Listen to what I've just said.
Yeah.
They don't discuss it 1-on-1. They discuss it 1-on-10. Unfortunately, the one person they should be discussing it with isn't included in that 10.
No. Yeah, but they indirectly go about it as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They don't come out and say the person's name or anything, but they say things associated with that person so others know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're the shit stirrers that get into the chat and rev somebody else up, and then it starts in there. And I've also noticed that trend on plenty of these YouTube paranormal channels, but it's a trend that's I'm now noticing here in Australia, is that when the hosts are not well informed, have not done their research and homework on the paranormal, have no background in understanding what it is that they're talking about in any sense, and when you try to bring it, you put a comment where you try to bring it into the paranormal, it just goes over their head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like a kindergarten crash for bloody crazy trains.
Yeah, but the thing is, everybody's got to start from nowhere. Everybody who starts in the paranormal knows
I'm learning
but
fast.
You've got to be prepared to listen and also debate. And you've also, if there's something you strongly believe in and it is not something that you can actually disprove, you've got to be prepared to stand by your principles. But the worst thing you can do is sit there and go, oh, I don't want to discuss that because I know nothing about it. Even if you sit in a room of people, I could sit in a room of rocket scientists and I know all about rocket science, right? And I could listen to them and I could form an opinion on things and say it, even though I know nothing about it, because I'd sit there and go, well, he's just said that and you've agreed with it, so this is my opinion on it. This is what I've got off it. And that's how you learn. If you're just going to sit there like a stuffed dummy and say nothing or refuse, to contribute, you're never going to get nowhere. You're never going to learn anything. You're going to be stuck in a rut. You've got to be prepared to debate with other people, and you've got to be prepared to discuss and see arguments from. And when I say arguments, I don't mean arguments as in, arguing. I mean arguments as in debating.
Different perspectives.
Debating.
You've got to see the different perspectives, and you've got to be prepared to accept that they may be right and you may be wrong.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But therein lies the best piece of best words you've said is you have to be, so the hosts have to be prepared, which means they should do research and their homework on topics like Julie does now, and she's taken back control of her channel that way, and that's where she's driving. And it's awesome, absolutely awesome. You don't find another channel like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all by the attention seekers and the drama queens, and then there's the armchair mediums. I've seen that, and you learn to see their handles, and you just go, no, you stay politely, and then you exit.
Mm-hmm.
But the preparation in the hosts and their knowledge, it's like with the four of us. Anyone in the chat could disagree with us on every point we raise and make.
Yeah.
It's because of our own personal experiences and the time that we've put into researching the topics that we talk on.
Yeah.
It's like, we spent 2 hours without even blinking talking about UFOs and, factual information that's out there for anybody to see.
Anybody to see? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the exact point.
It's not, we haven't got hidden squirrel channels that we, plug into. It's all stuff that we found on various, not
for
just
me,
YouTube
for me,
platforms.
it's 40 years. It's 40 years of knowledge.
Yeah.
I was 11 when I got into the paranormal. I'm 51 now. It is exactly 40 years of a lifelong hobby for me. And I have read thousands of books and gone through thousands of articles and videos online and watch things. And some of them I think, oh my God, you're off your trolley. And others have been really interesting. You've just got to learn, you've just got to follow your own path with it. Because I keep saying the beauty of the paranormal is nobody can say with any certainty that they are right. And there cannot be an expert in the paranormal because there is no definitive knowledge to be an expert on.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
And that's the thing, you've got to educate yourself. Like tonight, I don't know a lot about aliens. And I learnt a lot from you guys tonight. But I sat here as well, listened, and I asked questions where relevant.
Exactly.
Even in regard to the Men in Black. I mean, apart from the movie, I'd never heard of it. But I still had an opinion. I didn't sit here and go, I don't know.
Yeah. This is the thing, Julie. No matter, even if it's a subject you've never heard of before, once somebody tells you something about it, you automatically form an opinion. It's human nature. You form an opinion. So when somebody asks you, all you can do is tell them your honest answer of what opinion you formed from what they've said, and you can either say, "Well, that's convinced me," or, "You know what? You sound like you're talking bollocks to me," and be honest about it.
Yeah.
It's your opinion. Nobody's going to hold it against you or shouldn't do.
Yep.
Do you know what I find really sad? There's this guy, right? He's an audio engineer and he's part of a podcast, right? And every week in the podcast, he does a 10-minute segment going through technical data and talking very technical about the DR60, noise gate, reverb, spurt box in general, electronics and stuff like that. And he would keep it small. And they nicknamed it the boredom bomb. And I says to him, you need to stop saying that because, there is people out there that are hungry for education. But a lot of people are just, they want instant gratification and they don't want to put in the work. They don't want to put in the work behind the scene. They want to make a video. They want to focus on a channel. My house is overcome with radios. I don't put everything that I do on my channel. I just put raw sessions out on my channel. I do a lot of work behind the scenes. I try to read as much as I can, even though I have difficulty in it. But, when it comes to trying to learn, we're losing that education with a lot of this demon hunter stuff, and people like Steve Huff. Now, I call out Steve Huff now and again. I don't make a habit of it. There's other people out there that do it all the time because it grows their channel. I make a point and I leave it there. But I call people out like that, because they end up at the top of the food chain, at the top of the list when it comes to EVP, Spurt Box, DR60. You put in any of that, Steve Hopper's up there. And, you know, other people are not getting a chance. Some of these people that are experts in audio engineering and stuff like that, we need to hear from those people, and they're lost in the system.
Yeah.
The system is not built for what we do. It just does not suit, you know, what we do does not suit YouTube in many aspects, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we can do an experiment if Julie's willing to do it. Talking about learning about things. You've got your stream tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Your one a week on Saturday. I give you a topic you know nothing about, and that gives you a week to do research on it and learn the basic bones of it. And I can guarantee you'll do it.
Okay.
If you right. I'll give you the topic of alien abduction and famous cases. So a week tomorrow, you'll do your stream about alien abduction and basic and famous cases, and see if you can come up with a decent stream in a week, and I'll guarantee you can. I'll prove just how easy it is to educate yourself in the subject on the paranormal.
It's true.
Done.
There you go.
The thing is, you're not alone in all of this, you know?
Yep.
No.
You know?
No way.
Do you know what community is? A community is not how big the community is how, you know, how bonded together they are. And that very often means small communities, you know?
Yep.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly.
Oh,
I appreciate
absolutely,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I can't believe what Stephen's just put in the chat.
Oh, God, Stephen.
I once had a crush on Steve off. I thought, oh my God, Stephen, wash your mouth out.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Oh, that's just sad.
But with that, Julie, you don't just have to do the research on your own. You can ask anybody you want, including me, to do your research.
I'm good on research.
So you've got just
that.
over a week to do alien abduction and a couple of famous cases, and I can guarantee you in that week you can learn enough about alien abduction to put a stream together. I'll guarantee you.
Yeah, I guarantee it. You guys probably already know quite a bit. I mean, you seem pretty knowledgeable tonight, Brett, on a few abduction cases yourself.
I know all of the famous ones. I say you can draw on me if you want to, but you know. You can do it on, just use books, the internet, and people you know, and put a stream together a week tomorrow on alien abduction and famous cases. And I can guarantee you will be able to do a stream next week where you can hold your own in the topic.
Yep. Done.
Steve says, I know I've changed since then.
Actually, recently I started watching Steve Huff from 2012 to 2014. And
he actually had a decent channel then.
Do you know what? I have loads of boxes, but he was able to buy Frank's box, Joe's box, and all these other mini box. Stuff that we can't get our hands on because it costs thousands. And actually, he was getting great EVPs and great communication. And he went to the brewers. What he could have done is he could have learned electronics, and he could have made a proper radio, and it would have flipping sold.
Yeah.
Do you know, instead of do the lazy thing and sticking pedals on the side of an amplifier, if he wanted to go down the route of being known for inventing something, he could have went down the Frank Sumption route and created a box, and people would have bought it because he had actually made a brand for himself at that time. But it was just sad he just destroyed it, you know.
Oh, he's destroyed his channel with credibility because he keeps posting, you know, I have EVPs with God, Robin Williams, Prince, you name it.
This is the problem in the paranormal more so than a lot of other areas on YouTube. The second you are caught out in a single lie, your credibility is gone forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens with this small Aussie
I
channel.
don't mean just in lying about evidence. I mean lying about anything. The second you do a single lie that's proven to be a lie, your credibility is gone. Simple as.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, no matter what you say after that, you could tell the gospel truth for the rest of your life, and you will always be doubted the entire time.
Yeah.
Because you've been proven to be
That's what I've noticed with this Australian channel that I alluded to right at the beginning. The host has lied that many times on that many topics. Their credibility on anything now is just absolutely blown out the water. There's not a credible thing. As you say, they could start owning up to all this BS that they've told their channel, but you'd never believe, you wouldn't recognise it because the BS is doubled down on over and over again.
Yeah.
Stephen's
just made a good point there. Look at what happened to Derek, and he's actually referencing Derek Akora, who was a famous medium over here, and he was on Most Haunted, and he was proven by the Most Haunted team in a lie. They faked a name, and he started getting messages from this person who didn't exist, and he never lived it down. Never lived it down.
And the thing was, me and Rachel used to troll him on Facebook, and he used to take it on the chin, and he used to go red as a beetroot, and he'd start laughing and that, and we would say, "Sorry, Derek, we're just messing with you," you know. And he would take it on the. It was unbelievable. Sometimes we would give him such a hard time, and then we turned around. This guy is absolutely fantastic. He is such a nice man.
I actually went with Jace in 2016 to see Derek Akora. He came here to Rotherham, and me and Jace went. I wanted to see him because I was curious as to what his sessions would be like. And he was a nice bloke. You know, he was a nice enough bloke. You know, I weren't convinced of his medium abilities, but he was a nice enough bloke.
I was actually quite tearful because the day I was going over, going over to Rachel's house, and I found out that morning that Derek had passed away. And I says to Rachel, I says, Uncle Derek is dead. I says, you're joking. I says, I'm serious. You know, and it broke my heart because he was such a kind. Look, you know, he used to do readings online on Facebook. I'm not into that kind of thing, but his personality, he was absolutely fantastic, and he had the patience of a saint. He really had.
And I've got to be honest, when we went to that show of his, he genuinely made people feel welcome. Yeah, he was making money off it, but he genuinely made people feel welcome. You know, and he didn't promote his sites or anything like that. He just did the readings for people and, you know, and talked to people. He was a nice bloke. You know, I ain't convinced that he was, you know, he was all he claimed to be. But in my opinion, he was a nice enough bloke.
I think possibly some of this stuff was pushed on by most haunted. Stuff.
No doubt.
Talk about loss of credibility of a channel. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, you know, and he'll always be remembered for Mary Loves Dick.
Oh, me and Rachel. That's what we were. That's what. Derek knew.
Hang on, Sam. Let me explain Mary Loves Dick to these guys. Derek started to have possessions live on national TV on Most Haunted, and his most famous one was he ended up lying on the floor, twitching and doing his usual possessed thing and shouting "Mary Loves Dick" at the top. And he never lived it down, did he, Sam?
Yeah, he went into a trance, and it was Mary Loves Dick, and Dick was it was Richard, and then he went on about she protected him. She covered him up and all this kind of stuff. And
I'm dead.
next thing, a Beth was sitting there, and she just put the hand up to the side of the face, and she was trying to hold it in, and then they cussed then for a break, and then you could just see her bursting out laughing. So that's what me and Rachel were trolling Derek with. But Derek would always knew that we would arrive, because we would go, Derek, Mary loves Dick, you know, and he would just laugh. But it didn't faze him. And the sad thing is, you know, even after he had died, his wife was getting a hard time from people.
I did not agree with that.
No, that's not right.
It's horrible.
No.
He was a lovely, lovely man. I have to say, he was really, really nice. You know,
He was.
That's sad.
But he will fondly be forever remembered as Mary loves Dick.
Oh yeah.
You know, as an epitaph, that is Derek's epitaph. Mary loves Dick.
As Stephen just said,
he'll be fondly remembered for it evermore.
Yeah, as Stephen just said in the chat, he believes that Mary still loves Dick.
Yeah, it was Seago, not Stephen.
My apologies.
You need new glasses, like me.
Yeah. Oh, they're bifocal, so I've always got to be sort of trying to get them into. And anyway, the sun's come up now, so I'll probably turn some of these lights off.
Well, I've actually switched all my stuff around, because I don't know for anybody in the channel who's noticed. You should notice that my camera is actually a lot better quality now, because I changed my camera and everything in the week, but I've also downgraded the size of the monitor, so I'm working on a 27-inch monitor now instead of the 48 one. So if you see me doing this, I'm squinting at the writing.
Oh God!
And
it's a little bit smaller.
I upgraded my lighting for tonight, and I got myself a candle.
Oh, very posh. I should have lit one of mine.
Atmosphere.
Yes. I've only just noticed there's actually two people here that do wear glasses and two people that don't.
I meant to.
Right.
I just don't wear them all the. Well, actually, the glasses I have, the frames are on their way out. One of the handles is buggered. The arms.
Well, these are meant to be my reading glasses, and I've got some general purpose glasses. But these now, if I don't wear these, if I take them off, I can't see. I literally cannot. I couldn't read the text on here if I took them off.
You need
so I need to go and have another eye appointment and have permanent glasses, because I literally cannot see once I take these off at all.
Can you not take yours, Julie, to an optometrist and get them to tighten or fix the arm?
I'm going to have to get them to check my prescription anyway, because when I don't have my glasses on, like now, I'm okay when we're streaming. But if I had to sit here and read the chat, and I was doing it all night, I don't see very well. Especially if I'm typing or reading, I have to have them on, because everything just blurs and
If I lift them now, I cannot even see you lot. I can't see you lot. Honestly, you're all blurred. All four of you are blurred, majorly blurred. And yet, as soon as I put them on, you're in nice, clear, sharp focus. Because I started to wear them that much, I think my eyes have got used to these sort of things. So basically, I need to go. I need to do get an appointment sorted and get some new glasses. You need ones that'll stick on your head when you're upside down on your pole, Julie. You're going to need them. With the tie thing on the back of your head.
I need one with the rubber strap around my head. Yeah, so they'll just stay put.
Or you can have them with the chains that come off them, and you can attach them to you can attach them to your titty tassels when you're on the pole.
Oh, I could do that.
You spin me right round, baby, right round.
What were you going to say then, Sam? What were you looking at?
It's weird that the flashy balls went into a fit for a little while, and then it's completely stopped.
Stopped again.
Yeah, since then. Yep.
Do you know? Just not.
And there was nothing you did to trigger that.
No,
it's in a sealed jar, you were saying as well, so that makes it even more difficult.
Yeah.
No,
they're in a glass jar and there's a lid on it, and it's on the back of the couch. And there's a whole jar of balls. There's about 6 or 7 of them in there.
Yeah.
Oh, Stan, you've finally
next
got
week's
your own
stream,
Desmond.
I'm thinking of doing something a bit old school and doing a pendulum session. So you lot can ask questions, and I'll use the pendulum, and we'll see what thing is we got. Because with this new camera, it should be sharp enough to. Hang on, I'll try you.
Any questions about anything?
Anything? Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just end up with an aching arm at the end of it. But technically, that camera should focus on that. Okay, hang on. If I take, there you go, and then I can just hold it and see whether it goes. Oh,
yep,
look.
that's good. Yeah, I'm just saying. It's moving.
So we'll do that next week if you want. We'll do a pendulum session because I want to start doing a few more of the old school stuff because nobody does it anymore, and I think
I like it. I like the old school stuff too.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not mad into pendulums or any of that kind of stuff. But
I've got 2 pendulums.
Yeah.
I haven't used them a lot. Yeah.
I have them as well.
Yeah. You're good.
So we can do that, and then you'll have your alien abduction one next week.
I will.
You'll really be branching out into the paranormal then.
Going down.
Right, guys, I think I'm going to close this down for the night because, believe it or not, we have been going for over 3 hours again. It's absolutely flew by. So I'd just like to thank Julie and Jackie for getting up mega early.
Excuse me?
Julie and Deb. Sorry, I was looking at Jack's comment then as I was talking.
Yeah, Jackie Evelyn.
Julie and Deb for coming in and getting up mega early. I'd like stop laughing, Sam. I'd like to thank Sam for coming on because she's been ill. And I'd like to thank me for coming on because I've been roasting all the way through this thing. I'm really hot. And I'd like to thank all you lot in the chat because you really do make these streams what they are with your questions and your comments.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. We'll go out in a blaze of glory. There you go. So have a great night, everybody, and we will see you next Friday. So
bye.
Have a good night, all. Night.
Bye. Have a great week.
See you guys.